They left her to drown. Alara Vale's lungs screamed as the river dragged her under, the current cold and merciless. Above the roar of water, she could still hear their laughter, the nobles who'd shoved her off the bridge, the women who'd whispered she was nothing, the man she'd loved who'd watched her fall without lifting a finger. But then, through the darkness, someone dove in. Strong arms locked around her waist. A desperate mouth found hers, breathing life back into her collapsing chest. And in that moment, everything she thought she knew shattered. Who are you? If you want to know how a girl everyone abandoned became the one they'd all fear, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. Now, let's begin. The Great Hall of Shadow Peak reeked of wet fur and arrogance. Alara Vale pressed herself against the stone wall, making herself as small as possible while the pack nobles celebrated another successful hunt. Their voices boomed off the vaulted ceiling, stories of the elk they'd brought down, the territorial wolves they'd chased off, the strength of their transformations. Every sentence was a reminder of what she'd never be. 23 years old, and she'd never shifted once. Still lurking in corners, little mouse? The voice made her stomach clench. Vivian Blackthorn swept past, her hunting leathers still spattered with blood, her blonde hair perfect despite hours in the forest. 3 other noble daughters trailed behind her like shadows, their eyes already laughing. "I wasn't lurking," Alara said quietly. "I was just what? Hoping someone would notice you?" Vivian's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Sweetness, the pack notices you. We just don't care." The other girls giggled. Alara's fingers curled into her worn skirt, the fabric thin from too many washings. Her mother had been a seamstress before the fever took her, skilled enough to serve the royal household, but never wealthy enough to leave Alara anything but debt and shame. "At least I don't need to throw myself at every male in the kingdom," Alara said, surprised by her own voice. Vivian's eyes went cold. "Careful. You're only tolerated here because King Darius allows it. Don't mistake his pity for protection." She stalked away, her pack following. Alara released a shaky breath, her heart hammering. Stupid. Stupid to talk back, stupid to even be here. Stupid to think, "You should have clawed her eyes out." Alara jumped. A young woman leaned against the wall beside her, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her scarred face. Mara was one of the few people in Shadow Peak who ever spoke to Alara without contempt, probably because she was nearly as much an outcast. Too blunt, too rough, too willing to say what others only thought. "I can't fight," Alara said. "Not with those muscles. You can't." Mara pushed off the wall. "But words work too. You just need sharper ones." "I don't want sharp words. I just want to be left alone," Mara finished. "Or to be seen." Alara looked away. The answer was complicated, twisted up with years of rejection and a hope that refused to die no matter how many times it was crushed. Across the hall, he appeared. Cale Valamont moved through the crowd like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, golden-haired, broad-shouldered, impossibly beautiful. The younger prince, the charming one, the one who smiled at servants and remembered names. Alara's breath caught the way it always did when she saw him. "You're staring again," Mara muttered. "I'm not." "You are. And he knows it." Mara's tone gentled slightly. "Alara, he's never going to—" "I know." Alara cut her off, because hearing it said aloud would hurt too much. "I know what I am." But knowing didn't stop her from watching as Cale laughed with his companions, didn't stop the traitorous flutter in her chest when his gaze swept across the room. For one heartbeat, his eyes met hers. He smiled, that beautiful, devastating smile, and Alara's world tilted. Then he looked away, and gravity returned. "Come on," Mara said. "The kitchen needs help with cleanup. Might as well make ourselves useful." Alara followed her friend through the crowd, keeping her head down, her shoulders hunched. It was a practiced invisibility, learned over years of existing in spaces where she didn't belong. The pack members parted around her without acknowledgement, the way water flows around a stone. Except she felt it again. That prickling awareness at the base of her skull, the sensation of being watched. It happened sometimes, usually when she was alone in the corridors or working late in the kitchens. She'd turn, expecting to find nothing, and catch only shadows. Alara glanced back. At the high table, barely visible through the press of bodies, sat King Darius Valamont. He wasn't looking at her. His attention was fixed on his brother, his expression unreadable, his powerful frame still despite the chaos around him. Where Kale was sunlight, Darius was the storm before dawn, dark-haired, severe, carved from something harder than flesh. He'd taken the throne 5 years ago after their father's death, and in that time he'd transformed Shadow Peak from a fractured pack into an iron kingdom. He was also utterly terrifying. Alara had spoken to him exactly twice in her life. Once when she'd accidentally spilled wine on his coat, and once when he'd found her crying in the library after a particularly cruel prank. Both times, he'd said nothing, just looked at her with those unreadable gray eyes before walking away. She shivered and hurried after Mara. The kitchens were chaos, servants rushing between ovens and sinks, the head cook bellowing orders, the scent of roasted meat and fresh bread thick in the steamy air. Alara fell into the familiar rhythm of work, scrubbing pots until her hands ached, hauling water from the well, trying not to think about golden hair and charming smiles. Alara Val? She turned, surprised. A young page stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. Yes? You're wanted, in the east courtyard. The boy fidgeted with his sleeve. Someone left a message for you. Alara's heart stumbled. A message? Who? Didn't say, just told me to fetch you. He darted away before she could ask anything else. Mara looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. That's weird. Maybe someone needs mending work. Alara's mother had taught her to sew before she died. It was one of the few skills Alara had, one of the few ways she could earn her keep. In the courtyard? At night? Mara frowned. I don't like it. It's fine. Probably just... Alara untied her apron. I'll be quick. The walk to the east courtyard took her through quiet corridors, past tapestries depicting ancient battles and wolf hunts. Torches guttered in their brackets, casting dancing shadows. Alara's footsteps echoed too loudly. The courtyard was empty. She stood in the center of the stone space, confusion prickling across her skin. No one waited. No message. Just her and the cold night air and the distant sound of celebration from the great hall. Hello. Her voice sounded small. A door creaked open behind her. Alara spun. Kale Valamont stepped into the courtyard, and her entire world narrowed to that single moment. Alara. His voice was warm honey. You came. She couldn't breathe. They said someone left a message? I did. He moved closer, and the torchlight turned his hair to gold. I wanted to see you, alone. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. Why? The word came out barely above a whisper. Kale smiled, and it was everything she'd dreamed of for years. Because I've been watching you, Alara, for longer than you know. Her legs felt weak. Watching me? You think I don't see you? He reached out, fingertips brushing her cheek. You're wrong. I see everything. Alara's mind screamed warnings. This was too perfect, too sudden, too good. But her heart drowned out every rational thought. This was Kale, the one who'd occupied her dreams since she was 15, the one who represented everything she'd never have. I don't understand, she managed. Then let me show you. His hand slid to the back of her neck, gentle but firm. Close your eyes, Alara. She should have run, should have questioned, should have done anything except exactly what she did. She closed her eyes. Kale's lips met hers. The kiss was soft, testing, nothing like the rough passion she'd read about in stolen novels. It tasted like wine and something sweeter, something that made her head swim. Alara's first kiss, the thing she'd imagined 1,000 times, and it was happening, actually happening. Except something was wrong. The height wasn't quite right. The breadth of shoulders under her tentative hands felt different than she'd expected. And the way he kissed her, there was something almost clinical about it, like he was performing a role rather than feeling something. Alara's eyes flew open, but she couldn't see his face. The courtyard had gone dark, the torches extinguished, and in the blackness she could only feel strong arms, steady heartbeat, the warmth of another person who'd chosen to be here with her. Then light flooded back. Alara blinked, disoriented. Kale stood 3 feet away, his expression amused. Behind him, half hidden in shadow, Vivian and her followers watched with barely contained laughter. "What?" Alara touched her lips, confused. "But you just... Did I?" Kale's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've been standing here the whole time, little mouse. You must have been dreaming." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The extinguished torches, the kiss in darkness, the fact that she'd never actually seen who kissed her. It was a prank. All of it. "You look disappointed," Vivian said, stepping into the light. "Did you actually believe the prince wanted you?" Alara's face burned. She tried to speak, but her throat had closed. "It was a bet," Kale said casually, like he was discussing the weather. "Vivian said you'd do anything for a crumb of attention. I said even you had more pride than that." He laughed. "Turns out we were both right." The world spun. Alara stumbled backward, her stomach heaving. "Wait." Vivian moved closer, eyes bright with malice. "Before you run off to cry, who do you think actually kissed you? We hired one of the stable boys. Gave him a silver coin to put his mouth on yours." She wrinkled her nose. "You should thank me. It's probably the only kiss you'll ever get." The laughter followed Alara as she ran. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to escape, needed to hide, needed to disappear completely. Her vision blurred with tears. Her chest felt cracked open, everything inside her spilling out. Stupid, 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 stupid. She slammed into something solid. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. Alara looked up through her tears into the face of King Darius Valamont. His expression was granite. What happened? It wasn't a question. His voice was low, controlled, but something dangerous moved beneath the surface. "Nothing," Alara gasped. "I'm sorry, I wasn't looking." "You're crying." "I'm fine. Please, I just need..." She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened slightly. "Who hurt you?" The question was so unexpected, so direct, that Alara's prepared lies died on her tongue. She stared at him, this terrifying king who ruled with absolute authority, and saw something she'd never noticed before. Fury. Not at her. For her. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "It matters to me." 3 words that made no sense. Why would King Darius care about her humiliation? Why would he even notice her existence beyond the servant who occasionally spilled things? "Alara." Her name in his voice was different, rougher, more real. "Tell me who did this." She couldn't. The truth was too pathetic, too shameful. Besides, what would he do? Punish his own brother? Discipline the nobles for mocking someone who didn't matter? "I have to go," she said. This time when she pulled away, he let her. Alara ran until her lungs burned, until she reached the small room she shared with 2 other servants in the east wing. Empty, thank the stars. She collapsed on her thin mattress and let the sobs come. The kiss had been a lie. Kale's interest had been a lie. Even the small, fragile hope she'd carried for years had been nothing but delusion. She was exactly what they said she was. Nothing. The crying eventually stopped, leaving her hollow and exhausted. Alara stared at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across cracked plaster. Tomorrow she'd have to face them all again. Vivian's smirks, Kale's indifference, the pack's contempt. She'd have to pretend tonight hadn't happened, hadn't mattered. But something had shifted. The kiss in the darkness, before the lights came back, before the reveal, had felt real. Whoever had actually kissed her, whatever coin they'd been paid, for that one moment she'd felt chosen, wanted, seen. And that feeling, false as it was, had awakened something dangerous in her chest, the desire for more. The next morning, Alara woke before dawn and threw herself into work. If she stayed busy enough, moved fast enough, maybe she wouldn't have to think. She scrubbed floors in the great hall, hauled laundry to the washing rooms, helped the cook prepare breakfast for the early risers. Mara found her elbow deep in dishwater. "You look like hell," her friend said bluntly. "Didn't sleep well." "What happened last night?" Alara kept scrubbing. "Nothing. False alarm." "Alara, I don't want to talk about it." Her voice came out sharper than intended. "Please." Mara studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but when you do want to talk, I'm here." The kindness made Alara's eyes sting. She blinked rapidly and focused on the pot in her hands. The day dragged on. Alara moved through her tasks like a ghost, hyper-aware of every whispered conversation, every burst of laughter. Were they talking about her? Did everyone know? She caught Vivian's eye once across the dining hall and saw satisfaction there. Confirmation that yes, her humiliation was now public entertainment. She was carrying fresh linens to the guest wing when she heard voices around the corner. Don't understand why you're bothering. That was Kale, his tone petulant. She's nobody. She's under my protection. Darius. Alara froze, the linens clutched to her chest. Your protection? Brother, you can't be serious. She's a servant who can't even shift. She has no value to the pack. Her value isn't for you to determine. A pause. Then Kale laughed, but it sounded forced. This is about last night, isn't it? Someone told you about our little joke. Joke? The single word was edged with ice. It was harmless fun. The girl needs to learn her place. Her place, Darius interrupted, is wherever I say it is. And your place is not to torment those weaker than you for entertainment. Weaker? She's not weak, she's broken. There's a difference. Kale's voice hardened. Father would have expelled her years ago. The pack doesn't need dead weight. Father was a fool about many things. Silence. Alara barely breathed. You've changed, Kale said finally. Ever since you took the throne, you've been different, distant, and now you're defending servants. This isn't like you. You don't know what's like me. I know you're my brother. I know you used to care about strength, about tradition, about... I still care about strength, Darius cut him off. I just recognize it in forms you're too blind to see. Now leave and stay away from Alara Vale. Footsteps approached. Alara panicked, looking for somewhere to hide, but there was nowhere. Darius rounded the corner and stopped. They stared at each other. His eyes narrowed slightly, taking in her obvious eavesdropping position, the guilty flush on her cheeks. Your Majesty, Alara stammered, I was just... How much did you hear? Lying seemed pointless. Enough. He stepped closer. Alara's back hit the wall, the linens crushed between them. Good, Darius said quietly. Then you know. My brother is not to be trusted. Whatever he promises you, whatever he offers, it's a game to him. Do you understand? Alara nodded, mute. I need words, Alara. I understand. Her voice came out small. But I don't understand why you care. Something flickered across his face, there and gone too quickly to identify. That, he said, is not your concern. He left without another word, his coat brushing against her as he passed. Alara slumped against the wall, her heart racing. Why? The question followed her through the rest of the day, through dinner service, through the evening when the nobles gathered again in the great hall. Alara watched from her corner as Darius sat at the high table, his expression unreadable, his attention seemingly on the documents before him. But once, just once, his eyes lifted and found hers across the crowded room. The look lasted less than a second. Then he returned to his papers as if nothing had happened. Alara touched her lips, remembering the kiss in the darkness. The stable boy, Vivian had said. But something about that didn't fit. The kiss had been too confident, too sure. And the person's build... No. She was being ridiculous. Seeing patterns where none existed, desperately trying to salvage something meaningful from her humiliation. The kiss had meant nothing. She meant nothing, so why couldn't she stop thinking about it? 3 days passed. Alara kept her head down, did her work, avoided both Kale and his cruel entourage. She should have felt relieved that the incident seemed forgotten. The pack had moved on to other entertainment, other victims. But she felt hollowed out, going through motions, existing without living. On the 4th day, Mara cornered her in the library where Alara was returning books for the scholars. All right, enough. What happened? Alara shook her head. You've barely eaten. You don't sleep. Don't pretend. I can see the shadows under your eyes. And you jump every time someone speaks to you. Mara grabbed her shoulders. Talk to me. The story came out in broken pieces, the courtyard, the message, the kiss, the reveal. Mara's expression grew darker with each word. Those bastards, she hissed. Those absolute... Alara, you need to report this. Report what? That they played a prank on me? That I was stupid enough to fall for it? That they assaulted you? They orchestrated someone kissing you without your consent. Alara flinched. She hadn't thought of it that way, hadn't let herself. No one will care. Darius will care. The king has more important things. He defended you to his own brother. Mara's eyes were fierce. I heard the servants talking. Darius tore into Kale about treating you better. That's not nothing, Alara. It's pity. Or it's something else. Alara pulled away. Don't. Don't give me hope about something impossible. I can't. Her voice cracked. I can't survive getting my heart broken again. Mara's expression softened. Your heart was never Kale's to break. You loved an illusion. I know that now. Do you? Mara tilted her head. Because you're still acting like you did something wrong, like being fooled makes you worthless. I am worthless. To the pack. To the kingdom. Stop. Mara's voice was sharp. Stop talking about my friend like that. The words hit harder than expected. Alara looked away, blinking against the sting in her eyes. You want to know what I think? Mara didn't wait for an answer. I think you're scared. Scared that maybe you're not worthless, because if you're not, then you have to actually try. Actually fight for something, and that's terrifying. That's not, isn't it? Mara challenged. You've spent so long invisible that you've forgotten how to be seen. But someone sees you, Alara, and it's not who you expected. Before Alara could respond, shouting erupted from somewhere in the castle. Both women froze. What? More shouts. Running footsteps. Then a servant burst into the library, wild-eyed. The border patrols, they're back! He gasped for air. They found rogues, 3 dead, 2 more injured. They're bringing them in now. Mara cursed. The infirmary's going to be chaos. Come on. They ran. The courtyard swarmed with activity. Bloodied warriors staggering off horses, healers rushing forward with supplies, pack members demanding answers. Alara glimpsed the wounded. A young woman with her arm torn open, a man missing half his face, blood everywhere. Get them inside! That was Darius, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. Clear the halls, healers to the infirmary, warriors to the armory. Move! The pack obeyed instantly. Alara pressed against the wall as people rushed past, trying to stay out of the way. You, girl! She looked up. One of the senior healers pointed at her. Can you sew? Yes, but... Then get to the infirmary. We need every hand. Alara didn't argue. She ran. The infirmary was a nightmare. Blood soaked the floor. Wounded warriors screamed or went silent in worse ways. Healers worked frantically, their hands red, their faces grim. Here! Someone shoved supplies at Alara. Thread, needles, clean cloth. That one, the leg wound. Close it before he bleeds out. The warrior on the table was young, barely older than her. His leg was torn open from knee to ankle, muscle and bone visible through shredded flesh. He looked at her with glazed, terrified eyes. It's okay, Alara heard herself say. I've got you. She'd stitched torn dresses, mended split seams, embroidered delicate patterns. Never human skin. Never while someone screamed. Her hands shook as she threaded the needle. Please, the warrior gasped. Please don't let me die. Alara met his eyes. You're not going to die. She didn't know if it was true, but she began to stitch. The next hours blurred together, needle in, needle out, tie off, move to the next wound. Alara's back ached, her hands cramped. Blood soaked her dress, sticky and warm. But she didn't stop. Good work, the head healer said at one point, examining Alara's stitches. Clean, even, keep going. Sometime after midnight, the chaos began to subside. The critically wounded were stabilized. The dead were taken to the preparation rooms. Exhausted healers slumped against walls or collapsed in chairs. Alara washed her hands in a basin. Watching blood swirl pink in the water, she felt numb, disconnected from her body. Alara! She turned. Darius stood in the doorway, still in his blood-stained armor, his face drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes were focused entirely on her. Your Majesty. She tried to curtsy and nearly fell. Her legs had turned to water. He crossed the room in 3 strides and caught her. When did you last eat? I don't remember. Sit down. I should help clean. Sit down. Not a request. Alara sank onto the nearest bench. Darius crouched in front of her, studying her face. This close, she could see the lines of tension around his eyes, the gray in his dark hair that hadn't been there a year ago. "You did well tonight," he said quietly. "I just sewed." "You saved lives. That warrior with the leg wound, the healers said he would have died without your work." The words didn't feel real. Alara looked at her trembling hands. "I'm going to ask you something," Darius said, "and I want the truth." She nodded. "Do you still believe you're worthless?" Alara's breath caught. That's not... It's a simple question. But it wasn't. Nothing about this man was simple. He knelt before her covered in another's blood, exhausted from leading his warriors, and somehow he was asking her this. "I don't know," she whispered. "Then let me tell you what I see." His voice was low, intense. "I see someone who works twice as hard as anyone else for half the recognition. Someone who endures mockery without breaking. Someone who spent hours saving lives tonight without once thinking of herself." He leaned closer. "You are not worthless, Alara Vale. You never have been." Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Why?" The question tore out of her. "Why do you care? I'm nothing to you, nothing to this pack." "You're wrong." "Then what am I?" For a long moment, he just looked at her. Something moved in his eyes. Something fierce and desperate and utterly unexpected. "Mine," he said finally. "You're mine to protect. Mine to defend. And anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me." The world stopped. Alara stared at him, unable to breathe, unable to think. His words didn't make sense. They couldn't. Kings didn't claim broken servants. Alphas didn't protect the weakest. "I don't understand," she managed. "I know." Darius stood and the spell broke. "Get some rest. That's an order." He left before she could respond. Alara sat alone in the infirmary, her mind spinning. Mine. He'd said mine. What did it mean? But as she touched her lips, remembering that kiss in the darkness, remembering the strength and certainty of it, a dangerous thought began to take root. What if it hadn't been a stable boy at all? What if the kiss had been real? What if she'd been looking at the wrong brother all along? The morning after the rogue attack, Alara woke to find a dress laid across the foot of her bed. Not her dress. This one was fine wool, deep forest green, with embroidered cuffs and a fitted bodice. The kind of thing a merchant's daughter might wear. The kind of thing Alara had never owned in her life. Mara sat up in her own bed across the room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Where did that come from?" "I have no idea." Alara touched the fabric carefully, half expecting it to vanish. A small note was pinned to the collar. "For your work in the infirmary. D." Her heart stuttered. D. Darius. "Let me see that." Mara snatched the note before Alara could stop her. Her eyebrows shot up. "The king sent you a dress?" "It's probably just payment for helping last night." "Payment is coin, Alara. This is a statement." "A statement of what?" Mara gave her a look that said she was being deliberately dense. "That you're under his protection. That you matter." She fingered the embroidery. "This is expensive. Custom work. He didn't just grab something from the general stores." Alara's stomach twisted with something that felt dangerously like hope. "Don't read into it." "I'm not the one who needs to read into things. I'm the one watching a king make his intentions pretty damn clear while you pretend not to notice. His intentions are to be kind to a servant, nothing more." "Right, because kings regularly give personal gifts to servants they barely know." Mara tossed the dress at her. "Wear it. Show the pack that someone values you, even if you won't value yourself." Alara held the dress against her chest, feeling the weight of it. Wearing this would make her visible in a new way. Would invite questions, commentary, maybe more cruelty. But it would also be armor. She put it on. The transformation was immediate. The dress fit perfectly. Whoever had made it knew her measurements exactly, had accounted for her too thin frame and narrow shoulders. The color brought out the gold in her brown hair, made her pale skin look less sickly. "You look like a person," Mara said. "Not like you're trying to disappear." Alara studied herself in the small, cracked mirror. She did look different, but looking different and being different were not the same thing. "Come on," Mara said. "Breakfast service won't wait, and I want to see Vivian's face when she spots you." They walked to the dining hall together, and Alara felt every eye turn toward her. Whispers started immediately, ripples spreading through the castle like dropped stones in still water. Is that Alara Vale? Where did she get that dress? Did you see the embroidery? That's not servant quality. Vivian stood near the entrance with her usual entourage, and her expression when she saw Alara was everything Mara had hoped for. Shock, quickly covered by rage. "Well," she said loudly, "look who's playing dress-up." Alara's instinct was to shrink, to apologize, to make herself small again. But she'd stitched men's torn flesh back together last night. She'd held their hands while they screamed. Somehow, facing Vivian seemed less terrifying after that. "It was a gift," Alara said quietly, "for helping in the infirmary." "A gift from whom?" Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Because that looks like court fashion, not servant scraps." "Does it matter?" "It matters when you're putting on airs above your station." "My station was the infirmary floor last night, covered in blood while I saved lives." Alara heard the edge in her own voice and couldn't quite believe it was there. "Where were you?" Vivian's face flushed. "How dare you?" "Careful." The voice cut through the tension like a blade. Cale appeared beside Vivian, his golden hair catching the morning light, his smile easy and dangerous. He looked Alara up and down with obvious appraisal. "That's a lovely dress, Alara," he said. "Very becoming." She didn't trust the warmth in his tone. Not after the courtyard. Not ever again. "Thank you, Your Highness." "Makes me wonder." He stepped closer and Alara's skin crawled. "Who gave it to you? Must be someone important, someone who wants others to know you're special." The way he said the word made it sound dirty. "It was payment for services rendered," Alara said carefully. "Services." Cale's smile widened. "What kind of services exactly?" Mara moved forward, but Alara caught her arm. Fighting this battle herself felt important somehow. "I helped in the infirmary," she said. "Stitched wounds. Saved the life of at least one warrior. That kind of service." Strange that my brother would reward that so personally." So Cale knew. Of course he did. Probably the whole castle knew by now. "The king rewards competence," Alara said. "I was competent." "You were adequate," Vivian interjected. "Any skilled servant could have done the same." "Then where were they?" Mara demanded. "Where were all these skilled servants when warriors were bleeding out?" "Mara," Alara warned, but her friend was done being quiet. "You all talk about strength and pack loyalty, but when actual danger showed up, you scattered like rabbits. Alara stayed. She helped. And now you're angry because someone finally noticed her instead of you." The silence was deafening. Vivian's hand moved to her hip. Not a threat exactly, but a reminder that she could shift into something deadly while Alara remained trapped in human form. "You should teach your pet to mind her tongue," Vivian said to Alara, "before someone cuts it out." "Try it," Mara said flatly. "See what happens." "Enough." Cale's voice carried authority despite the lazy way he spoke. "Ladies, we're all friends here. No need for violence." His eyes fixed on Alara. "Though I do think we should discuss this gift situation. It's causing quite a stir." "There's nothing to discuss." "No?" "Because people are talking. Wondering why the king is suddenly so interested in a servant who can't shift. Wondering what you might have done to earn such favor." The insinuation was clear. Alara's face burned. "I didn't do anything." "Of course not." But Cale's tone said he didn't believe her. "Still, you should be careful. Court politics are dangerous for those who don't understand the game. You could get hurt." It sounded like concern, but the look in his eyes was pure calculation. "I appreciate your warning, Your Highness," Alara managed. "If you'll excuse me, I have duties." She walked away before her shaking legs could betray her. Mara followed, muttering curses under her breath. "That bastard!" she hissed once they were out of earshot. "He's going to twist this into something ugly." "He already has." Alara's hands trembled as she picked up a serving tray. "Everyone thinks that the king and I—" "So what if they do?" "So I'll be a joke. Again. Or worse, I'll be something dangerous to Darius's reputation." "Or," Mara said carefully, "you could talk to him, find out what he actually wants." I can't just approach the king. Why not? He's the one who gave you the dress. He's the one who claimed you were his to protect. Seems like he opened that door pretty wide. Alara bit her lip. The thought of confronting Darius, of demanding answers, felt impossible, but so did walking around wearing evidence of his favor while the whole castle speculated about what it meant. The decision was taken from her hands an hour later when a page appeared at her elbow. Alara Vale? King's study. Now. Her stomach dropped. Did he say why? Doesn't matter why. When the king summons, you go. The walk to Darius's private study felt like marching to an execution. Alara's mind raced with possibilities. Maybe he'd heard about the confrontation with Kale and was angry she'd caused trouble. Maybe he regretted the dress. Maybe he was going to tell her to stop making problems for herself. She knocked on the heavy oak door. Enter. The study was smaller than she'd expected, lined with books and maps, a large desk dominating the center. Darius stood by the window, his back to her, looking out over the kingdom. You wanted to see me, Your Majesty? Close the door. She did, her heart hammering. Darius turned. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his jaw tight with tension. But when he saw her in the dress, something shifted in his expression. It fits, he said quietly. Yes, thank you. It's beautiful. It's adequate. He moved to his desk, pouring 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter. I would have given you something better, but that would have caused more talk than you're already dealing with. So he knew. Of course he knew. About that, Alara started. People are saying, I know what they're saying. He held out a glass to her. Drink. You look like you need it. Alara took the wine with shaking hands. The first sip burned her throat. I didn't mean to cause problems, she said. You didn't. I did. Darius drank his own wine in one swallow, by making my protection obvious, by not being subtle. He set the glass down hard. But I'm done being subtle. I don't understand. Don't you? He looked at her directly, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. You're smart, Alara. Smarter than you pretend. So stop pretending and think. She thought about the dress, the defense of her to Kale, the way he'd knelt before her in the infirmary, the word that kept echoing, mine. You're protecting me, she said slowly. But why? Because someone has to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now. He moved closer, and Alara's back hit the bookshelf behind her. But I need you to understand something. My brother is playing a game with you. Whatever attention he shows, whatever kindness, it's manipulation. He wants to prove he can take what I've claimed. The word claimed sent electricity down her spine. I'm not a thing to be claimed. No, you're not. Darius's hand came up, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his palm near her cheek. You're a woman who deserves better than this pack has given you. Better than my brother's cruelty. Better than invisibility. And you're offering me what? Visibility? That's more dangerous than being ignored. I'm offering you a choice. His voice dropped lower. You can keep hiding, keep letting them treat you like nothing, or you can stand with me and show them exactly what you are. What am I? Stronger than any of them realize. The air between them felt charged, electric. Alara couldn't look away from his eyes, gray like storm clouds, intense and unwavering. I'm not strong, she whispered. I can't shift. I can't fight. Stop. His hand finally made contact, fingers gentle on her jaw. Stop telling yourself they're lies. They're not lies. I've lived 23 years without shifting, without powers. That makes me weak by every pack standard. Pack standards are broken. Darius's thumb brushed across her cheek. You want to know what I see when I look at you? Alara couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I see someone who survived years of contempt without becoming cruel herself, who saved lives without thought of reward, who stands in front of me wearing my gift despite knowing the cost. His hand slid to the back of her neck, familiar and possessive. I see the woman A knock at the door shattered the moment. Darius stepped back, his expression shuddering. What? The door opened. A guard appeared, looking nervous. Your Majesty, the council is assembled. They're waiting. Tell them I'll be there shortly. They said it's urgent. Something about the rogue attack. Darius's jaw tightened. He looked at Alara for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. "We'll continue this conversation later," he said. "Don't let my brother corner you alone. Do you understand?" She nodded. "Words, Alara." "I understand." He left without looking back. Alara remained in the study, her skin still tingling where he touched her, her mind reeling. What had he been about to say? "I see the woman I—" What? The woman he wanted? The woman he protected? The woman he loved? No. That was insane. Kings didn't love broken servants, but as she touched the place where his hand had rested against her neck, she couldn't deny what she'd felt. Recognition. Connection. Something that went deeper than protection or pity. Something that terrified her. She left the study and nearly collided with Kale in the hallway. "Well," he said, smiling that dangerous smile, "private meetings with my brother now? You're moving up in the world." Alara tried to step around him, but he blocked her path. "What did you discuss?" he asked pleasantly. "That's between me and the king. Everything in this castle is my business." He leaned closer. "Especially when it involves my family's reputation. I'm not damaging anyone's reputation. Aren't you?" Kale's eyes traveled over the dress. "A servant girl, suddenly favored by the king, wearing gifts, having private meetings. People talk, Alara, and the talk isn't flattering. Then they can talk to me directly. So brave." He touched her shoulder and she flinched. "But bravery without power is just stupidity. Remember what happened in the courtyard? That was a gentle lesson. If you continue pursuing something that doesn't belong to you, I'm not pursuing anything." "No? Then why is my brother looking at you the way he does?" Kale's voice hardened. "Why is he defending you, protecting you, making a fool of himself over a girl who can't even shift?" The words hit like physical blows. But Alara forced herself to meet his eyes. "Maybe you should ask him." "I'm asking you." His grip on her shoulder tightened. "What hold do you have over Darius?" "None. I'm just a servant." "Exactly. So act like one." He released her with a small push. "Stay in your place, little mouse. For your own safety." He walked away, leaving Alara shaking in the empty corridor. The threat was clear. If she continued accepting Darius's protection, Kale would make her pay. But backing down meant surrendering to the same invisibility that had suffocated her for years. "You can keep hiding," Darius had said, "or you can stand with me." Alara looked down at the dress, the visible symbol of that choice. She didn't take it off. The rest of the day crawled past in a blur of whispers and hostile stares. Everywhere Alara went, conversation stopped. People pointed. Vivian's group watched her with predatory interest, clearly planning something. By evening, Alara's nerves were scraped raw. She helped with dinner service, trying to focus on work, trying not to notice how the nobles looked at her now, like she was something interesting, something potentially valuable, or something to destroy. "You should go to your room," Mara murmured as they cleared dishes. "The pack's restless tonight. Full moon in 3 days and tempers are already rising. I can handle myself." "Against one, maybe, but if Vivian's planning something with her whole group, then running won't stop them." Alara wiped her hands on her apron. "I'm tired of running." Mara grabbed her arm. "Don't be stupid. Bravery is admirable. Suicide is just sad." But Alara was done being careful, done calculating every move to avoid conflict. The dress felt like more than fabric now. It felt like permission to exist loudly instead of silently. She finished her duties and walked through the castle without rushing, without hiding. Let them stare. Let them whisper. She was rounding the corner toward the servants' quarters when she heard her name. "Alara, wait!" She turned. A young nobleman jogged toward her, someone she vaguely recognized from court but had never spoken to. "Can I help you?" she asked warily. "I just wanted to say, what you did in the infirmary was incredible." He smiled, genuine and warm. "My brother was one of the wounded. You saved his leg. The healer said without your stitching, he would have lost it." "Oh." Alara's defensiveness crumbled slightly. "I just did what I could." "You did more than that, and I wanted to thank you properly." He held out a small leather pouch. "It's not much, but I can't accept payment." "It's not payment, it's gratitude." He pressed the pouch into her hand. "Please, It would mean a lot to my family. Alara opened the pouch. Inside were 3 silver coins, more money than she'd seen in months. This is too much. It's exactly right. The nobleman squeezed her hand gently. You're not invisible, Alara. Not anymore. He left before she could respond. Alara stood in the empty corridor, staring at the coins. Not invisible. The words echoed Darius's insistence that she was worth seeing. Maybe they were right. Maybe she'd been wrong about herself all along. She was still standing there when Vivian appeared with 4 others. Not her usual group, but warriors, males, each one larger and more dangerous than the last. There you are, Vivian purred. We've been looking for you. Alara's hand closed around the coin pouch. What do you want? To teach you a lesson. Vivian's smile was vicious. About knowing your place. The warriors spread out, blocking both ends of the corridor. Alara's heart slammed against her ribs. I haven't done anything to you. You exist, that's enough. Vivian stepped closer. You think wearing a pretty dress makes you one of us? You think the king's attention protects you? She laughed. He's not here now, and accidents happen. Touch me and he'll what? Start a war over a servant? Vivian's eyes glittered. You're delusional, but don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. Not permanently. One of the warriors grabbed Alara's arm, yanking her forward. She struggled, but he was too strong, his grip like iron, his breath hot on her face. Hold her, Vivian ordered. Another warrior seized her other arm. Alara kicked, screamed, but they were pack warriors, trained fighters with strength she couldn't match. The dress first, Vivian said. Let's see how special you feel without it. Hands tore at the fabric. Alara heard stitches rip, felt the bodice give way. Shame flooded through her, hot and choking. Stop! Please. Begging now? That's better. Vivian gripped Alara's hair, forcing her head back. You need to understand something. The king might pity you, but pity isn't power, and without power, you're nothing. Let her go. The voice cut through the violence like a whip. Everyone froze. Darius stood at the end of the corridor, and the rage radiating from him made the air itself feel dangerous. His eyes were no longer gray. They glowed amber, wolf rising to the surface. I said let her go. The warriors released Alara immediately. She stumbled, clutching the torn dress to her chest. Vivian's face went white. Your Majesty, we were just assaulting someone under my protection. Darius moved forward, each step measured and deadly. Destroying my property, defying my direct orders. She's not your property. Isn't she? His voice dropped to something barely human. I claimed her, publicly. And you thought you could touch what's mine. The wolf in his words was undeniable. Alara had never heard anything so terrifying or so possessive. We didn't know, one of the warriors started. You knew? Darius stopped in front of them. Everyone in this castle knows. But you thought there wouldn't be consequences. His eyes fixed on Vivian. You were wrong. She's just a servant. The sound Darius made wasn't quite a growl, wasn't quite words. The warriors backed up immediately, heads lowered, instinctive submission to a more dominant predator. But Vivian held her ground, trembling but defiant. You can't punish me for this. My family. Your family, Darius interrupted, will be informed that you attacked a member of my household, that you destroyed property I personally gifted, that you deliberately defied my authority. He smiled, and it was nothing like Kale's charm. If they're smart, they'll punish you themselves before I have to. For her? Vivian's voice cracked. You'd destroy political alliances for a broken girl who can't even shift? Yes. The single word hung in the air, absolute, uncompromising. Vivian looked between Darius and Alara, and something ugly twisted across her face. You're sleeping with her. That's the only explanation. Darius's hand shot out, gripping Vivian's throat. Not squeezing, not quite, but the threat was unmistakable. Choose your next words carefully, he said quietly, because they might be your last. Vivian's bravado crumbled. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. Not to me. He released her and stepped aside, gesturing to Alara. To her. Vivian looked like she'd been asked to swallow poison, but she turned to Alara, fury burning behind her forced contrition. I apologize for my behavior. Leave, Darius said. All of you. And if I hear of anyone else touching her, thinking about touching her, or breathing in her direction without permission. He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. They fled. Alara stood alone with Darius in the empty corridor, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The torn dress hung from her shoulders in ruins. Bruises were already forming on her arms where the warriors had grabbed her. Are you hurt? Darius asked, his voice gentling. She shook her head, couldn't speak. If she opened her mouth, she'd either scream or sob. Come here, she. She didn't move. Alara, come here. Her legs carried her forward without conscious thought. And then his arms were around her, solid and warm and safe, and the tears she'd been holding back broke free in ugly, gasping sobs. I've got you, Darius murmured against her hair. You're safe now. I've got you. They tore it, she choked out. The dress you gave me, I'll get you 10 more dresses, 100. Don't cry over fabric. It's not the fabric, it's... She couldn't explain. The dress had been proof she mattered, and they'd destroyed it like it was nothing, like she was nothing. I know. His arms tightened. I know what it meant. They stood like that for a long time, her crying, him holding her, the castle silent around them. Eventually, Alara's tears slowed. She became aware of how close they were, how she could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, how his hand moved slowly up and down her spine in comfort. I should have been there sooner, Darius said quietly. I was in the council meeting and I felt... He stopped. Felt what? You. In danger. He pulled back enough to look at her, and his eyes were still amber, still wolf. I can't explain it, but I knew you needed me. Alara's breath caught. The mate bond. It had to be. But that was impossible. You had to shift before you could feel the bond, and she'd never... Don't, Darius said, reading her thoughts. Don't try to rationalize this. Just accept that I will always come for you. Why? Because you're mine. There it was again. That word. That claim. I don't belong to anyone, Alara whispered. I know. He touched her face, thumb brushing away remaining tears. That's what makes you worth claiming. And then he kissed her. Not like the kiss in the darkness. That had been gentle, questioning. This was desperate, demanding, a drowning man finding air. His mouth moved against hers with certainty, with possession, with something that felt like starvation finally fed. Alara's mind went blank. This was Darius, the king, the alpha. And he was kissing her like she was water in a desert, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for years. She kissed him back. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his shirt. The torn dress fell away completely, but she didn't care. There was too much heat, too much need, too much rightness in the way their bodies fit together. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Alara's world had tilted completely. That night, she managed. In the courtyard. That was you. Not a question. A statement. Darius's smile was small and fierce. Yes. You let me think it was Kale. I let you figure it out on your own. Why? Because you needed to see him clearly before you could see me at all. He traced her jaw. Did it work? Alara thought about Kale's cruelty, his manipulation, the way he'd used her dreams against her. Then she looked at Darius, rough and hard and honest, who'd defended her without asking for anything, who'd claimed her without permission but somehow made it feel like freedom. Yes, she whispered. He kissed her again, slower this time, thorough. And Alara finally understood what she'd been missing all those years watching Kale from the shadows. She'd been in love with an illusion. But this, rough hands and desperate mouths and a man who saw her completely, this was real. And it was about to get them both killed. Darius pulled back first, his breathing ragged, his eyes still more wolf than man. You need to leave the castle. Alara blinked, the words not making sense against the heat still singing through her veins. What? Tonight, before the full moon. His hands gripped her shoulders. I'll arrange an escort, send you somewhere safe. I'm not running. This isn't about running. It's about survival. He glanced down the corridor, tense. What happened tonight? That was a warning. Next time they won't stop because I show up. They'll make sure I can't find you until it's too late. Then I'll be careful. Careful won't save you. His voice echoed off stone. You don't understand what you've walked into. The pack is fracturing. Half the nobles think I've gone soft, protecting a girl who can't shift. The other half think you're manipulating me for power. He laughed bitterly. And my brother is feeding both sides, turning this into a crisis. Alara's mind raced. Kale wants you to send me away. Of course he does. Then don't give him what he wants. She grabbed Darius's wrists, holding tight. I spent my whole life running from conflict, hiding, making myself small so no one would notice me enough to hurt me. And it never worked. They hurt me anyway. Alara, I'm tired of being afraid. Her voice cracked but didn't break. You asked me to stand with you, so let me stand. Darius stared at her like she'd struck him. You'll die. Maybe, but at least I'll die as myself, not as some invisible ghost they erased years ago. She stepped closer. You said I was stronger than they realized. Prove you meant it. Don't ship me off like cargo. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his hand cupped her face, rough and careful at once. You're going to destroy me, he said quietly. Or save you. Or both. He kissed her forehead, gentler than anything that came before. Stay close to me tomorrow. The full moon gathering, there will be challenges. The pack will test my authority. If they see weakness, I'm the weakness. You're the strength they're too blind to recognize. He pulled off his heavy coat and draped it over her shoulders, covering the torn dress. Come, I'll take you to your quarters. I can walk myself. Not anymore. From now on, you're under my direct protection. That means you don't go anywhere alone. Understood? Alara wanted to argue, but the bruises forming on her arms reminded her how easily she'd been overpowered, how close she'd come to something much worse than torn fabric. Understood. They walked through silent corridors, Darius's hand a steady presence at the small of her back. Servants pressed themselves against walls as they passed, eyes wide. Tomorrow, the entire castle would know the king had personally escorted her to bed. The rumors would be vicious. At her door, Darius stopped. Lock this. Don't open it for anyone but me or Mara. You're scaring me. Good. Fear will keep you alive. But his expression softened slightly. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow will be difficult. He left before she could respond. Inside the small room, Mara sat on her bed, eyes enormous. What the hell happened to you? Alara looked down at herself, barefoot, wearing the king's coat over a destroyed dress, her hair wild, her lips swollen from kissing. It's a long story. Then start talking. She did. All of it. Vivian's attack, Darius's rescue, the kiss. By the end, Mara's expression had cycled through shock, fury, and something close to awe. He kissed you, she said slowly. The king actually kissed you? Yes. And you kissed him back? Yes. Well, Mara let out a long breath. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Haven't decided which. Alara laughed, surprising herself. Can't it be both? Knowing you? Probably. Mara stood, gathering clean clothes. Here, change into something that won't make people immediately assume you're sleeping with royalty. They're going to assume it anyway. True, but let's not make it easy for them. Alara changed, wincing at new bruises. The dress, Darius's beautiful gift, was ruined beyond repair. She folded it carefully anyway, unable to throw it away. What are you going to do? Mara asked. What he asked? Stand with him. That's suicide. Probably. Alara met her friend's eyes. But I'm done being invisible, even if it kills me. Mara crossed the room and pulled her into a fierce hug. Then I guess I'm standing with you too. Someone needs to watch your back. You don't have to. Shut up. You're my friend. That's what we do. Alara held on tight, grateful beyond words. Neither of them slept much that night. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it the chaos of full moon preparations. The castle buzzed with energy, pack members arriving from outlying territories, warriors sharpening weapons, servants hauling supplies for the massive feast. The full moon gathering was the most important event of the season, when the entire pack came together to run, to hunt, to reaffirm bonds. For Alara, who couldn't shift, it had always been a night of isolation, but this time felt different, dangerous. She helped in the kitchens, hyper-aware of every whisper, every hostile glance. The story of last night had spread like wildfire. Half the castle thought she was the king's secret lover. The other half thought she was a manipulative witch who'd ensnared him somehow. No one considered that maybe, just maybe, she was simply a woman he'd chosen to see. Alara Vale? She turned. A court official stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. The king requests your presence in the throne room, immediately. Her stomach dropped. Now? Yes. Mara grabbed her hand, squeezed once. Go, I'll cover for you here. The throne room was packed. Every noble family, every warrior of rank, every person of importance stood in rigid formation. At the center, on the raised dais, Darius sat on his throne, not the approachable man from last night, but the absolute monarch, carved from stone and authority. Kale stood beside him, golden and smiling. Alara's entrance caused immediate silence. Every eye turned toward her. Alara Vale, Darius's voice carried across the massive space. Approach. Her legs felt like water, but she walked forward. The crowd parted reluctantly, and she felt their hostility like a physical weight. She stopped at the base of the dais and dropped into a curtsy. Your Majesty, you've been requested to attend tonight's full moon gathering, Darius said formally. Not as a servant, but as my personal guest. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Alara's mind reeled. Personal guest? That meant sitting at the high table, participating in rituals, being visible in a way she'd never been. Being a target. Your Majesty, one of the nobles stepped forward. Lord Brennan, an older man with scars across his face. With all respect, this is unprecedented. The gathering is for pack members who can shift. This girl has no wolf. I'm aware of what she has and doesn't have, Darius said coldly. My invitation stands. But the traditions I'm well within my rights to modify as I see fit. Darius's gaze swept the room. Unless someone wishes to challenge my authority directly? No one spoke. But the tension thickened. Kale stepped forward, his expression concerned. Brother, perhaps we should discuss this privately. I understand your affection for Miss Vale, but the pack's stability— My affection, Darius interrupted, is none of your concern. It becomes my concern when it threatens our people. Kale turned to address the crowd. We're facing increasing rogue attacks. Our borders are weak. And instead of focusing on defense, our king is distracted by a servant girl who contributes nothing to pack strength. Several nobles nodded agreement. Alara wanted to sink through the floor. You think she contributes nothing? Darius stood and his presence filled the room. She saved 5 lives during the last attack, more than most of the warriors standing here. Anyone can stitch wounds, Lord Brennan said dismissively. Then why weren't you in the infirmary doing it? The question hung sharp. Why was it a powerless servant girl holding warriors together while you hid behind walls? Brennan's face flushed. I was organizing defenses. You were saving your own skin. Darius descended the dais, moving through the crowd like a predator. All of you, so quick to mock what you consider weakness, yet when actual danger appeared, you scattered. And she stayed. He stopped in front of Alara, his back to everyone else. His eyes met hers, and she saw the question there. Can you handle this? She straightened her spine, lifted her chin. Yes. Darius turned back to the assembly. Alara Vale is my guest tonight. Anyone who objects can leave. Anyone who harms her will answer to me personally. He let the threat settle. Are we clear? Reluctant murmurs of assent. Good. Dismissed. The crowd dispersed slowly, hostile whispers following Alara as she stood frozen at the base of the dais. Darius waited until they were alone before speaking. That was a mistake, he said quietly. Inviting me? Making it public. I thought transparency would help. Instead, I just painted a larger target on your back. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm trying to protect you and I keep making things worse. You're doing what you think is right. Right and effective aren't the same thing. He looked at her. Last chance. I can still send you away, quietly. You'd be safe. No. Ilara, I said no. She moved closer. You stood in front of your entire court and claimed me. I'm not running now. That would destroy you politically. I don't care about politics. Liar. The word came out gentle. You care deeply. You're trying to hold this pack together while half of them want to tear it apart. And somehow I've become the symbol of everything they're fighting about. Darius's laugh was bitter. You're smarter than I give you credit for. I've spent years watching from the shadows. You learn a lot when no one thinks you're paying attention. Ilara touched his hand carefully. Let me help you. I know I can't fight, can't shift, but I can observe. Listen. Maybe find the fractures before they split completely. You want to spy for me? I want to be useful to you. His hand turned, fingers lacing through hers. You're already useful. You're the only honest thing in this entire cursed castle. The moment stretched between them, fragile and fierce. Then Kale's voice shattered it. How touching. They both turned. Kale stood in a shadowed archway, his expression unreadable. I wondered how long it would take, he continued, stepping into the light. How many pretty dresses? How many public defenses before you finally seduced him properly? Watch your mouth, Darius warned. Or what? You'll defend her honor? Kale laughed. Brother, she has no honor. She's a servant playing at nobility, and you're too besotted to see it. Leave. Now. Not until I've said my piece. Kale moved closer, his eyes fixed on Ilara. You think you've won something, but all you've done is make him weak. The pack sees it. The nobles see it. Soon, they'll act on it. Is that a threat? Darius asked quietly. It's a warning from someone who actually cares about this kingdom's future. Kale's smile was sharp. But by all means, keep your pet. Just don't be surprised when the pack tears itself apart over her. He left before Darius could respond. Ilara's hands shook. He's right. I'm dividing your people. He's manipulating you. That's what he does. Darius pulled her close. Don't listen to him. But the words had already burrowed deep. Ilara had spent years being invisible specifically to avoid causing problems. And now she was the problem, the crack in the kingdom's foundation. What if we're wrong? She whispered. About what? This. Us. What if caring about me really does destroy everything? Darius's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Then let it burn. I spent 5 years building a kingdom on traditions that valued strength over compassion, power over humanity. Maybe it deserves to burn. You don't mean that. Don't I? His thumb brushed her lips. I'm tired, Ilara. Tired of ruling people who would rather see you dead than admit you have value. Tired of pretending I don't. He stopped. Don't what? But he just shook his head. Tonight. Stay close to me during the gathering. Don't eat or drink anything I haven't tested first, and if things go wrong, they won't. If they do, he continued firmly, you run. Promise me. I'm not leaving you. Promise me. The intensity in his voice left no room for argument. I promise. He kissed her forehead, lingering. I'll send guards to escort you at dusk. Wear something comfortable. You'll be standing for hours. He left, and Ilara stood alone in the empty throne room, the weight of the coming night pressing down on her. She'd thought the hardest part would be facing her own fear. But she'd been wrong. The hardest part would be watching Darius fight for her while his kingdom crumbled around them. The hours until dusk crawled past. Ilara tried to work, but her hands shook too badly. Mara found her in the library, staring blankly at a book. You look terrible. Thanks. I mean it. You need to eat. Mara pushed bread and cheese across the table. Can't face a hostile pack on an empty stomach. Ilara forced down a few bites. The food sat heavy in her gut. What if he's wrong about me? She asked quietly. Darius, what if I'm not strong? What if I really am just broken? Mara grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. Strength isn't about shifting or fighting. It's about standing back up every time they knock you down. And you've been doing that your entire life. That's just survival. Survival is strength. Mara's eyes blazed. You survived when they wanted you to disappear. You stayed kind when they were cruel. You helped people who never helped you. That's not weakness, Ilara. That's steel. The words cracked something open in Alara's chest. She'd never thought of herself that way, never considered that simply continuing to exist might be its own form of power. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. Just don't die tonight." "I'll try." At dusk, 2 guards appeared, not hostile but professional. They escorted Alara through the castle to the great courtyard where the gathering would begin. Already hundreds of pack members milled about, their excitement palpable. The full moon hung low and massive on the horizon. Darius waited near the center, surrounded by nobles and warriors. When he saw Alara, something in his expression softened. "Stay beside me," he murmured as she approached. The nobles watched her with cold calculation. Vivian stood among them, a bandage on her neck where Darius had grabbed her. Her eyes promised murder. The gathering began with traditional ceremonies, declarations of pack loyalty, recognition of new warriors, acknowledgement of the dead. Alara stood silent through it all, hyper-aware of every hostile glance. Then came the challenges. It was tradition. Any pack member could challenge for rank, for territory, for grievances. Usually friendly, structured fights that reinforced the hierarchy. Tonight felt different. Lord Brennan stepped forward first. "I challenge the king's judgment." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Darius's expression didn't change. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that you've allowed personal feelings to compromise pack security, that you've elevated a powerless girl above tradition, that you've created division when we need unity." "Your challenge is noted," Darius said coolly. "But challenging judgment isn't the same as challenging me directly. So which is it?" Brennan hesitated. Challenging the king directly meant a fight to submission or death. Not many were willing to go that far. "I challenge your right to make Alara Vale your guest at this gathering," Brennan said finally. "Denied. My invitation stands. Then I challenge her right to stand in the circle." Darius moved so fast Alara barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next, he had Brennan by the throat, lifted off the ground. "You challenge her?" Darius's voice was barely human. "A woman who can't shift? Can't fight back? You want to prove your strength by crushing someone weaker?" Brennan choked, struggling. "It's tradition. Tradition is broken." Darius dropped him. "Anyone else?" No one moved. "Good. Then we run." The pack began to shift, bones cracking, fur sprouting, human forms melting into wolves. It was beautiful and terrible, the kind of transformation Alara had dreamed of her entire life. She stood in the center of it, the only one unable to change. Darius shifted last. His wolf was massive, black fur, gray eyes, raw power in every line. He moved to Alara's side, pressing against her leg in silent protection. Then they ran. Alara couldn't keep up, obviously. The pack disappeared into the forest in seconds, leaving her alone in the courtyard with a handful of servants and elderly pack members who didn't run anymore. Pathetic. She turned. Vivian stood there, still human, her smile vicious. "Couldn't shift to save your life," Vivian continued. "Literally. I wasn't trying to." "No? Then what are you trying to do? Besides ruin everything?" Alara straightened. "I'm trying to exist. Sorry if that's inconvenient for you." "Inconvenient?" Vivian laughed. "You're not inconvenient. You're a mistake that needs correcting." 3 other women appeared from the shadows, Vivian's usual followers, all still human. Alara's stomach dropped. "The king said, 'The king is hunting. He can't protect you now.'" Vivian pulled a knife from her belt. "And we're going to teach you what happens to girls who forget their place." Alara ran. She bolted for the castle, but they were faster, cutting her off. She veered toward the forest instead, hoping to lose them in the darkness. "Run faster, little mouse!" Vivian's laughter chased her. Alara crashed through undergrowth, branches tearing at her clothes, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She could hear them behind her, toying with her, letting her think she had a chance. She broke through the trees and found herself at the river. The same river that bordered the kingdom. The same river that had drowned 2 servants last year when they'd tried to cross during the spring floods. Still swollen from recent rains, the current fast and deadly. Vivian emerged from the forest, the others flanking her. "End of the line!" Alara backed toward the water. "You kill me, Darius. Will what?" We'll say you fell. Tragic accident. Vivian's smile was predatory. You were always clumsy. People will know. People will be relieved. Vivian moved closer. The problem solved itself. The pack can heal. And my family's alliance with the crown will be stronger than ever once I'm the one comforting the king through his grief. Alara's heel hit water. The current tugged at her ankle, cold and hungry. Last chance, Vivian said. Jump yourself or we push you. Either way, you drown. Alara looked at the rushing water, at Vivian's knife, at the women blocking any escape. I promise, Darius had said. If things go wrong, you run. She'd promised. But running into the river was suicide. Staying was guaranteed death. What's it going to be? Vivian asked. Alara met her eyes and smiled. I choose me. She dove into the river. The current seized her immediately, dragging her under. Water filled her mouth, her nose, her lungs. The world became chaos, up and down, meaningless, cold in pressure and blind panic. She was going to die. She should have listened to Darius, should have left when he asked, should have stayed invisible and safe and alive. Her vision dimmed. Then something massive hit her. Arms locked around her waist, strong, sure, refusing to let go. They broke the surface together and Alara gasped air, choking and sobbing. I've got you, a voice said. Not quite human. Caught between man and wolf, Darius. He'd come for her. He fought the current with brutal strength, dragging them both toward the far shore. Alara clung to him, barely conscious, her body shutting down from cold and shock. They hit the bank hard. Darius hauled her onto solid ground and collapsed beside her, both of them gasping. Alara couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop the violent tremors racking her body. Breathe, Darius commanded. Alara, breathe. She tried. Water came up instead, choking her, and then his mouth was on hers. Not kissing, breathing, forcing air into her collapsing lungs with desperate, measured breaths. Once, twice, 3 times. Alara's chest heaved. She dragged in air on her own, coughing violently. That's it, Darius murmured. Stay with me. She focused on his face, human again, his eyes wild with fear and fury. You came, she managed. Always. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth, quick, desperate confirmations that she was alive. I felt you in danger. I felt... He pulled back, staring at her. How did you survive that current? You saved me. I did. But you should have drowned before I reached you. That current... He stopped. His eyes widened. Lara, look at your hands. She held them up, confused. They were glowing. Faint blue light emanated from her skin, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. And beneath the surface, something moved, power she'd never felt before, waking up from a long sleep. What? Her voice cracked. What's happening to me? Darius's expression was awe and terror mixed. Your wolf. It's coming. That's impossible. I'm 23. If I could shift, I would have years ago. Unless something was blocking it. He grabbed her shoulders. Alara, when did you last see a healer? A real one, not a servant with herbs? She tried to think through the fog in her mind. My mother took me once. When I was 7, they said I was broken, that my wolf was dormant, maybe dead. Or suppressed. Darius's jaw tightened. Someone could have done this to you. Blocked your shift deliberately. The words didn't make sense. Why would anyone... Because a powerless servant is no threat. But a wolf. He looked at her glowing hands. What if you're not weak at all? What if you're something they were afraid of? Alara's mind spun. Her whole life she'd been told she was broken, defective, less than. What if it was a lie? What if she'd been caged? The glow intensified. Pain shot through her body, bones shifting, muscles tearing, something massive trying to break free. It's happening, Darius said. Your first shift. Fight through it. It hurts. I know, but you're strong enough. His hands cupped her face. You're strong enough for this. The pain became everything. Alara screamed, her body convulsing. She felt herself splitting apart, reality fracturing. And then something inside her shattered. Power flooded through her like lightning. The glow exploded outward, blue light painting the forest in electric brilliance. Alara's scream became a howl, When the light faded, she stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her wolf was massive, nearly as large as Darius's, with fur the color of moonlight and eyes that burned blue-white. Power hummed through every cell, intoxicating and terrifying. She could smell everything, hear everything, feel the pack miles away, their shock reverberating through bonds she'd never felt before. Darius shifted beside her, his black wolf pressing against her silver one. "You're beautiful," his voice echoed in her mind through the pack bond. "And you're mine." Elara's wolf responded with pure instinct, rubbing against him, claiming him back. "What am I?" Something they were right to fear. In the distance, howls erupted. The pack had felt her awakening. They were coming. Darius's wolf growled, protective. "We need to run, now, before they—" Wolves burst from the forest. Dozens of them, led by a golden one Elara recognized instantly. Kale, his wolf, circled them, hackles raised. "Well," his mental voice dripped venom, "isn't this interesting?" More wolves appeared. The nobles, the warriors, everyone who'd been running. They formed a ring around Elara and Darius, trapping them. She shifted, someone said through the bond. "Impossible. She was broken." "Look at her. That's not a broken wolf. That's not a normal wolf at all." Elara's instincts screamed danger. These weren't allies. They were predators sensing weakness, considering whether to attack. Darius stepped in front of her, teeth bared. "Back away. All of you." "Or what?" Kale's wolf smiled, a terrifying expression on an animal face. "You'll fight your entire pack for her? Even now that she's proven everything they suspected?" "What are you talking about?" "She was suppressed, brother. Someone blocked her shift." Kale's mental voice carried to everyone. "Which means she's not just some random servant. She's someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone who's been hiding among us for years." Fear rippled through the assembled pack. "I wasn't hiding," Elara tried to say. "I didn't know—" "Convenient," Vivian's wolf snarled. "The spy claims ignorance. She's not a spy." Darius's rage filled the bond. "Then what is she?" Kale challenged. "Because that's not a normal wolf, Darius. Look at her eyes, that blue fire. That's ancient bloodline, royal bloodline." He paused for effect. "She's one of the lost heirs." The revelation hit like a physical blow. The lost heirs, descendants of the original pack founders, scattered generations ago when the kingdom fractured. They were legends, myths. They were also considered threats to the current monarchy. "You're insane," Darius said. "She's been here for years, hidden in plain sight. The perfect infiltration." Kale's wolf circled closer. "Tell me, brother, how much did you really know about her? Her parents? Her past? Or did you just fall for a pretty face and a sad story?" Doubt flickered through the pack bond. Elara felt it, their suspicion, their fear. "I'm not—" she started. "Prove it," someone demanded. "Prove you're not a threat." How could she prove something she didn't understand herself? An hour ago she couldn't shift. Now she was apparently royalty? It was insane. But she could see the pack believing it. Wanted to believe it because it explained why their king had protected her, why she'd divided them. She wasn't just a servant. She was an enemy. "She dies," Vivian said flatly, "before she can rally the old bloodlines against us." "No!" Darius's wolf lunged at anyone who moved toward Elara, but there were too many. They closed in, teeth bared, ready to tear her apart. Elara's new instincts took over. She didn't think, just reacted. Power exploded from her in a shockwave of blue light. Every wolf within 20 feet was thrown backward, yelping in shock. The clearing went silent. Elara stood at the center, her fur crackling with energy, her eyes blazing. The power felt ancient and vast, like she'd tapped into something that had been sleeping for centuries. "Stay back," she growled. "All of you." They stayed back, but the fear in the bond intensified. "See?" Kale said quietly. "She's exactly what I said. Powerful. Dangerous. And now we know. Enough." Darius's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone return to the castle. Now. That's an order. You can't order us to ignore a threat." "I can, and I am. She's under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me." "Even if it means civil war?" Kale challenged. Darius's wolf bared teeth. Even then, the standoff stretched. Then slowly, the pack began to withdraw. Not happy, not satisfied, but unwilling to openly defy their king. Yet, Kale was the last to leave. This isn't over, brother. You chose her over your kingdom. They'll remember that. When they were finally alone, Darius shifted back to human. Alara tried to follow, but couldn't figure out how to let go of the wolf form. You're too new, Darius said gently. It'll come with practice. For now, just breathe. Calm down. She tried. The wolf form resisted, still on high alert. Alara, look at me. She met his eyes, gray and steady and safe. It's okay, he said. You're okay. Just let go. This time, the shift came easier. Painful, awkward, but possible. Alara collapsed on the ground, naked and shaking. Darius wrapped her in his torn shirt. How do you feel? Terrified. Her voice was hoarse. What just happened? What am I? I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. He pulled her against his chest. Are you hurt? Just overwhelmed. That was incredible. He kissed her temple. You were incredible. I threw them with my mind. You defended yourself. That's what wolves do. Normal wolves don't glow blue. You're not normal. He tilted her face up. And maybe that's exactly what this kingdom needs. Alara wanted to believe him, but Kale's words echoed in her mind. She's exactly what I said. Powerful, dangerous. What if he was right? What if she really was a threat? They made their way back to the castle in silence, Alara leaning heavily on Darius. Her body ached like she'd been beaten, every muscle screaming. The castle was chaos, servants rushing about, warriors gathered in tight groups, nobles arguing in hushed voices. When Darius and Alara appeared, everything stopped. Your Majesty, Lord Brennan stepped forward. We need to discuss what happened. Tomorrow, Darius said flatly. This can't wait. That girl is going to her rooms, under guard. And if anyone disturbs her tonight, they'll regret it. His eyes swept the assembly. Am I clear? Reluctant nods. Darius escorted Alara to her quarters personally, posting 2 guards outside her door. Sleep if you can, he said quietly. Tomorrow we'll find answers. What if the answers make everything worse? Then we deal with it. He kissed her, soft and fierce. Together. When he left, Alara collapsed on her bed. Mara appeared moments later, eyes wild. What the hell happened out there? Everyone's saying you're royalty or a spy or I don't know what I am. Alara held up her still faintly glowing hands. But I think I just made everything infinitely worse. Mara stared at her. You finally shifted. Yeah. And you're glowing. Yeah. Well, Mara sat heavily. At least you're not invisible anymore. Despite everything, Alara laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. Through the window, she could see wolves pacing in the courtyard, angry, afraid, ready to tear her apart. She'd wanted to be seen, to matter. Careful what you wish for. The knock came at dawn. Alara jerked awake, disoriented. Mara was already at the door, arguing with someone in hushed tones. She needs rest. The king demands her presence. Now. Alara sat up, her body protesting. Every muscle ached from the shift, her bones feeling like they'd been broken and reformed. The blue glow had faded from her hands, but she could still feel the power humming beneath her skin, dormant but present. I'm awake, she called out. Mara turned, her expression worried. You sure you can handle this? No, but I don't have a choice. The guard who'd knocked was young, nervous. Miss Vale, the council has assembled. They're demanding answers. Of course they were. Alara dragged herself out of bed, her legs shaking. Give me 5 minutes. She dressed quickly in the plainest clothes she owned. No gifts from Darius this time, nothing that would give them ammunition. Just a simple gray dress that made her look like exactly what she'd always been. A servant. Except she wasn't anymore, was she? The walk to the council chamber felt like marching to her execution. Guards flanked her on both sides, not protecting so much as escorting a prisoner. Pack members watched from doorways and corridors, their expressions ranging from fear to hostility to curiosity. The freak's awake, someone muttered. Did you see what she did? Threw warriors like they were nothing? Unnatural. That kind of power. Alora kept her eyes forward, her spine straight. Let them talk. She was done shrinking. The council chamber was packed. Every noble family, every warrior of rank, every person with political power stood in rigid formation. At the head of the room, Darius sat in his throne, his expression carved from granite. Kyle stood beside him, golden and relaxed, already playing the role of concerned brother. Alara was directed to the center of the room. Alone. Exposed. Alara Vale, Lord Brennan began, his voice formal and cold. You stand before this council to answer for last night's events. I'm not on trial, Alara said quietly. Aren't you? Vivian stepped forward, her neck still bandaged. You hid your true nature for years. You infiltrated this pack under false pretenses. You seduced our king. Enough. Darius's voice cut like a blade. She's here to provide information, not be accused of crimes she didn't commit. Didn't commit? Another noble, Lady Thorne, elderly and sharp-eyed. She's a lost heir, ancient bloodline, the kind of power we banned from this kingdom for good reason. We don't know what she is, Darius said. That's why we're here, to find out. All eyes turned to Alara. I don't know either, she said honestly. I didn't know I could shift. I didn't know about any bloodline. I was 7 when a healer told my mother I was broken, that my wolf was dead. Convenient story, Vivian sneered. It's the truth. Alara met her gaze. I've spent my entire life believing I was powerless. Why would I hide something I didn't know existed? Because you were waiting, Kale said smoothly, waiting for the right moment to reveal yourself, to destabilize the kingdom from within. That's insane. Is it? He addressed the council. Think about the timing, rogues attacking our borders, the pack fracturing over policy disagreements, and suddenly, right in the middle of it all, a mysterious girl with ancient power appears in the king's bed. She's not in my bed, Darius said dangerously. Kale smiled. Not yet, perhaps. But you've made your interest obvious, and that interest has divided this pack more than any external threat. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Alara's stomach twisted. He was turning this into politics, making her existence the problem instead of the solution. If I wanted to destabilize the kingdom, Alara said, her voice shaking but clear, why would I spend years as a servant? Why would I save your warriors' lives? Why would I let myself be mocked and beaten and almost killed without fighting back? Deep cover, Lady Thorne said, building trust before the strike. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm exactly what I appear to be, a girl who was blocked from her power and didn't know why. Alara looked at Darius. You said someone could have suppressed my shift deliberately. Who would do that? And why? Darius's expression shifted slightly. That's what we need to find out. We need to eliminate the threat first, Lord Brennan interrupted. Discussion comes after containment. You want to imprison me, Alara said flatly, for the pack's safety. I'm not a threat. You threw a dozen warriors across a clearing with your mind. Vivian's voice rose. If that's not a threat, what is? Self-defense against people trying to kill me. Alara's hands began to glow faintly. She clenched them into fists, trying to suppress the power. You pushed me into a river. You wanted me to drown. What was I supposed to do? Let you murder me? The glow intensified despite her efforts. Blue light spilled between her fingers. See, Kale said quietly. She can't even control it. Imagine what happens when she loses her temper in a crowded hall. How many innocents will she kill by accident? The fear in the room thickened. Alara could feel it pressing against her skin, feeding the power instead of calming it. Breathe, Darius said, his voice cutting through the noise. Alara, look at me. Breathe. She met his eyes, steady, certain, anchoring. The glow began to fade. She responds to you, Lady Thorne observed. Interesting. She responds to calm instead of fear, Darius corrected, which is what we should be offering instead of persecution. Calm? Lord Brennan looked incredulous. Your Majesty, with respect, this girl represents everything our ancestors fought to prevent. The old bloodlines nearly destroyed this kingdom. That's why we established rules against Rules that suppressed people's true nature, Alara interrupted. That sounds familiar? The jab landed. Several nobles shifted uncomfortably. The old bloodlines were dangerous, Kale said. They valued individual power over pack cohesion, led to constant infighting, power struggles, near extinction. He looked at Alara. Is that what you want? To drag us back to chaos? I don't want anything except to understand what I am, Alara's voice cracked. You're all standing here debating my fate like I'm some kind of weapon, but I'm just a person who's been lied to her entire life. By whom? Darius asked quietly. I don't know. That's what we need to find out. Alara turned to the council. Someone suppressed my wolf when I was 7. Someone powerful enough to lock away ancient bloodline magic. Who had access to me? Who had motivation? Silence. Then Mara's voice called from the back of the room. Her mother's employer. Everyone turned. Mara stood near the door, clutching a worn leather journal. What are you doing here? Darius asked. Being useful. Mara moved forward, the guards too surprised to stop her. Alara's mother was a seamstress, worked for a noble family until she died. I found her journal in the servants' archive. She held it up. Want to guess who employed her? Alara's heart hammered. Who? Mara's eyes found Vivian. The Blackthorns. The room erupted. That's a lie, Vivian shrieked. It's documented. Mara opened the journal, reading aloud. Entry from 20 years ago. Lady Blackthorn seemed very interested in Alara today, asked strange questions about her father, about his family line. I don't know why it matters. He died before Alara was born, but she paid me extra coin to bring Alara to the estate for measurements. Lady Thorn, Vivian's grandmother, went pale. This proves nothing, Vivian said desperately. My family employed her mother, so what? So why the interest in Alara's father? Mara flipped pages. According to this, he was a drifter, a wanderer who stayed in Shadow Peak for 1 season, got Alara's mother pregnant, and disappeared. She looked up. Or was he more than that? Someone worth tracking? Someone whose bloodline scared you enough to suppress his daughter's power? You're reaching... Am I? Mara's voice hardened. Because there's an entry here from right after Alara's 7th birthday. Took Alara to the healer today. They say her wolf is dormant, possibly dead. Lady Blackthorn seemed relieved. Gave me a purse of gold and told me never to speak of it. I don't understand, but the money will keep us fed for months. The silence was deafening. Darius stood slowly. Lady Thorn, did your family suppress Alara's wolf? The elderly woman's composure cracked. It was necessary. Necessary? Alara could barely breathe. You crippled me for 23 years because it was necessary? You don't understand? Then explain it to me. The glow returned, brighter this time. The air itself seemed to vibrate with Alara's fury. Explain why you stole my life. Because your father was Kieran Ashworth, Lady Thorn's voice rang out. Last surviving heir of the old royal line, the bloodline we overthrew 3 generations ago to establish this kingdom. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Alara staggered. The Ashworths were supposed to be extinct, Lord Brennan said slowly. We made sure. Not all of them. Lady Thorn's hands shook. Kieran survived, went into hiding, and somehow ended up here, in our kingdom, long enough to father a child. She looked at Alara with something close to pity. We didn't know until you were 6, until your eyes started changing color, that distinctive blue. By then, your mother loved you too much to give you up. So we made a choice. You chose to break her, Darius said, his voice deadly quiet. We chose to protect the kingdom. If she'd grown up knowing what she was, if she'd developed her full power... Lady Thorn's composure finally shattered. The Ashworths nearly destroyed everything. They were too powerful, too unstable. We couldn't risk it happening again. So you trapped a child, Mara said, condemned her to a life of mockery and abuse, made her believe she was worthless. Better worthless than dangerous, Alara laughed. It came out broken, jagged. You were afraid of a 7-year-old girl. We were afraid of what you'd become. And now? Alara held up her glowing hands. What am I now? Exactly what we feared. But Lady Thorn's voice held resignation, not anger. And it's our own fault. We should have killed you when we had the chance. Vivian gasped. Grandmother, don't be naive, child. We made a calculated risk. We thought suppression would be enough. We were wrong. Lady Thorne met Alara's eyes. I won't apologize. Everything I did for this pack's survival. But I won't pretend you don't have the right to be furious. The honesty was somehow worse than lies would have been. Alara wanted to rage, to unleash the power crackling through her veins and make them all feel a fraction of what she'd endured. But Darius's hand found hers, grounding her. What happens now? He asked the council. Now we contain the situation, Lord Brennan said. The truth is out. We can't change the past, but we can prevent future chaos. By imprisoning her? Mara demanded. By exiling her, Kale said smoothly. It's the compromise. She lives, but far from Shadow Peak, away from the pack she destabilizes. No, Darius said flatly. Brother, be reasonable. I said no. Darius's grip on Alara's hand tightened. She stays, under my protection. Even if it costs you the throne? Kale's question hung heavy. The council held its collective breath. Darius looked at Alara, really looked at her. And she saw the decision in his eyes before he spoke it aloud. Even then. You're choosing her over your kingdom, Lord Brennan said, disbelief coloring every word. I'm choosing what's right over what's easy. Darius addressed the full assembly. Alara was innocent, a child when her power was stolen. She's done nothing to deserve persecution except exist. And if this pack can't accept that, if you're all so terrified of what she represents that you'd rather destroy her than give her a chance, then maybe I'm ruling the wrong people. The threat was clear. Challenge him on this, and he'd walk away from the throne entirely. Your Majesty, Lady Thorne started. However, Darius continued, I understand the fear. I understand the history, so here's my proposal. Alara stays. She learns to control her power under my supervision. And in 6 months, we hold a formal trial. Let her prove through actions whether she's a threat or an asset. And if she proves to be a threat, Vivian asked, then I'll exile her myself. Darius's jaw tightened. But I won't condemn her without evidence. Without a chance. The council exchanged glances. It wasn't what they wanted, but it was better than open defiance of their king. I want restrictions, Lord Brennan said finally. She doesn't attend council meetings, doesn't participate in pack rituals, stays confined to the castle grounds. Agreed, Darius said before Alara could protest. For now. And if she loses control, hurts someone, then the trial moves up. Darius looked at Alara. Can you live with these terms? She wanted to say no, wanted to rage that after everything they were still caging her, just with prettier bars this time. But she was alive, and she had 6 months to prove them wrong. I can live with it, she said quietly. Then it settled. Darius released her hand and addressed the council. Dismissed, all of you. They filed out slowly, still muttering. Lady Thorne paused near Alara. I'm not sorry, the old woman said, but for what it's worth, you have every right to hate me. I do hate you, Alara said, but I also understand you. Fear makes people do terrible things. Lady Thorne's expression flickered with something that might have been respect. Then she left. When the chamber finally emptied, only Alara, Darius, Mara, and Kale remained. Well played, brother, Kale said, though I wonder how long you can keep this up. As long as necessary. Even when the outlying territories hear about this, when they demand to know why you're harboring an Ashworth, Kale's smile was sharp. The political cost will be immense. Let it be immense. You really love her, don't you? Kale's tone shifted to something almost curious. Enough to destroy yourself. Darius didn't answer, didn't need to. Kale shook his head. You're a fool, but I suppose that's your choice. He looked at Alara. Don't make me regret letting you live. You didn't let me do anything, Alara said. I earned my survival. For now, he left without another word. Mara let out a long breath. That was insane, Alara finished. Thank you. For the journal. For speaking up. Someone had to. Mara squeezed her shoulder. I'll leave you two alone. But Alara? Don't waste this chance. She left quickly. Alara stood in the empty council chamber with Darius, the weight of everything pressing down on her. You shouldn't have done that. Done what? Risked your throne for me. Promised to exile me if I fail. Put everything on the line. I didn't put everything on the line. Darius crossed the distance between them. I put what matters most on the line. There's a difference. Your kingdom matters. You matter more. The words stole her breath. That's not... You can't what? Choose you? His hands framed her face. I already did. The moment I kissed you in that courtyard, the moment I dove into that river, maybe even before that, all those years I watched you survive what would have broken anyone else. You watched me. Every day. His thumb brushed her cheek. I told myself it was duty, making sure the weakest pack member wasn't being abused beyond tolerance. But it was never just duty. Alara's heart cracked open. I don't understand. Why me? I was nothing. You were everything. He kissed her forehead. Strong when you had every reason to break, kind when cruelty would have been easier, real in a court full of pretenders. Another kiss, to her temple. I fell in love with you years ago, Alara. I just didn't let myself admit it until you almost died. That's... She couldn't finish, couldn't process. I'm going to destroy you. Or save me. He smiled, small and fierce. Either way, I'm yours, if you'll have me. If she'd have him. This man who'd given up political security, risked rebellion, stood between her and an entire pack's fear. This king who somehow saw worth in the girl everyone else had dismissed. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll have you. He kissed her properly then, deep and certain, a claiming and a promise. Alara kissed back with everything she had, pouring years of loneliness and new hope and desperate love into the press of mouths. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers. 6 months, he murmured. We have 6 months to prove them wrong. And if we can't, then we'll face it together. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. But I believe in you, Alara. I believe you're going to show this pack exactly what an Ashworth can be when she's not crippled by fear. Alara wanted to believe him, but doubt still whispered in the back of her mind. What if I'm dangerous? What if they were right to suppress me? Then we'll learn to manage it, together. His expression turned serious. But first, we need to teach you control. Real control, not suppression. Can you feel the power right now? She nodded. It hummed beneath her skin, constant and electric. Try to call it forward, just a little. Alara focused. The glow appeared in her palms, brighter this time, easier to summon. Good. Now push it back. She tried. The glow flickered but didn't fade. It doesn't want to go back. Because you're trying to suppress it like they did. Don't push it away. Acknowledge it. Accept it. Then channel it somewhere useful. Channel it where? Into the bond. Darius held out his hand. Send it to me. Alara hesitated. What if I hurt you? You won't. Trust yourself. She placed her glowing hand in his. Focused on the mate bond she could now feel thrumming between them, silver and strong and real. Pushed the excess power through it. Darius's eyes widened. I feel that. Does it hurt? No, it's... He flexed his fingers, and blue light sparked briefly across his knuckles. It's incredible, like lightning in my veins. The glow in Alara's hands faded as the power settled into the bond, shared instead of suppressed. It worked, she breathed. Of course it worked. You're not meant to fight your power, Alara. You're meant to use it. He pulled her close. And we're going to spend the next 6 months making sure you can. It should have been terrifying, the pressure, the stakes, the consequences of failure. But standing in Darius's arms, feeling the mate bond pulse with shared power, Alara felt something she hadn't in years. Hope. Real, dangerous, fragile hope. The days that followed fell into an exhausting pattern. Mornings, Alara trained with Darius in a private courtyard, learning to shift at will, to control the blue fire that wanted to consume everything, to harness power instead of being controlled by it. Afternoons, she studied with the pack's oldest historian, learning about the Ashworth bloodline and why they'd been overthrown. The reasons weren't comforting. They were unstable, the historian explained, showing her ancient texts. Powerful, yes, but that power drove them mad. They heard voices, saw visions. Eventually, they'd turn on their own packs in paranoid rages. And you think I'll do the same? I think it's a risk we need to monitor. Great. So she wasn't just dangerous, she was potentially insane. But Alara pushed through the fear. Every day she got stronger, more controlled. The shifts became easier. The blue fire responded to her will instead of her emotions. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, the pack's attitude began to shift. It started small. A warrior nodding to her in the hallway instead of turning away. A servant offering a genuine smile instead of fear. A noble's daughter asking her advice on an embroidery pattern. "They're watching you," Mara observed one evening, "waiting to see what you'll do." "I'm not doing anything except training." "Exactly. You're not lashing out, not demanding special treatment, not acting like the entitled royal they expected." Mara grinned. "It's making them rethink things." "Maybe." But the core group, Vivian, several older nobles, and crucially, Kale, remained hostile. Alara caught them watching her with calculating eyes, like they were waiting for her to slip. She was determined not to give them the satisfaction. 2 months into her probation, a young warrior collapsed during training. Heart failure, the healer said, nothing anyone could have prevented. Except Alara felt it before it happened. The wolf bond suddenly screamed warning, someone in pain, someone dying. She ran to the training grounds without thinking, pushed through the crowd, and placed glowing hands on the warrior's chest. Power poured out of her, not destructive this time, healing, restarting the heart that had stopped, mending the damaged muscle. The warrior gasped back to life. The watching pack stared at Alara in shock. "She saved him," someone whispered. "Ashworth power isn't just destruction," another added. "It's creation too." Word spread through the castle like wildfire. By evening, the story had grown. Alara had brought someone back from death itself, had performed a miracle. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but it shifted something fundamental. "They're not afraid of you anymore," Darius said that night. "They're curious." Is that better or worse? Better. Curiosity leads to understanding. Fear only leads to violence. 3 months in, Alara was invited to her first pack dinner. Not as a servant, as a guest. She sat at the high table beside Darius, acutely aware of every eye on her. Vivian sat across from them, her expression sour. "Enjoying your elevation, Alara?" "I'm enjoying the company," Alara said carefully. "How diplomatic." Vivian's smile was sharp. "Tell me, do you ever miss your old life, when you were invisible?" "Sometimes," Alara admitted. Invisibility was safer, but not real. The response came from Lord Brennan, of all people. He raised his glass slightly. "To living authentically, even when it's dangerous." Others raised their glasses. Not everyone, Kale notably didn't, but enough that it felt like acceptance. Like maybe she was winning. 4 months in, everything fell apart. Rogues attacked the northern border in force. Not the usual small raiding parties, but an organized assault. 50 wolves, coordinated and deadly. The pack mobilized immediately. Warriors shifted and ran north. Healers prepared the infirmary. Alara stood in the courtyard, watching them go, feeling useless. "You should fight with us," a voice said. She turned. A young warrior, the one she'd saved months ago, stood there with several others. "I'm restricted to castle grounds," Alara said. "Screw the restrictions. We need every fighter we have." "I'm not trained for combat." "You threw a dozen warriors across a clearing. You brought me back from death. You're trained enough." He held out a weapon belt. "Come with us. Prove your pack." Alara looked at the belt, at the warriors watching her with something close to hope. She could stay behind, follow the rules, play it safe, or she could choose herself. She took the belt. The run north was brutal, miles of rough terrain at full sprint. Alara's wolf kept pace with the warriors, her silver fur stark against their darker coats. She felt their surprise through the bond. She was faster than expected, stronger. They reached the border at dusk. The rogues had already breached the first defensive line. Pack warriors fought desperately, outnumbered and struggling. Darius's black wolf led the counterattack, tearing through enemy lines. But there were too many. Alara didn't think, just acted. She shifted mid-run back to human, planted her feet, and unleashed everything she'd been holding back for 4 months. Blue fire exploded from her hands in a massive wave. It swept across the battlefield, not burning, but pushing, shoving every rogue wolf backward, separating them from pack warriors, giving her people room to breathe. The rogues scrambled, confused, and terrified. They'd never faced power like this. Neither had the pack. Alara stood at the center of blue flames that didn't burn, her eyes blazing white-hot, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "Leave now or die here!" The rogues ran. When the fire faded, Alara collapsed. Darius caught her before she hit the ground, shifting back to human. "You insane, brilliant woman," he gasped. "You saved them all! I broke the restrictions. I don't care." He kissed her, hard and desperate. "You saved our pack." Around them, warriors shifted back to human, stared at Alara with new eyes. "She fought for us," someone said. "Bled for us," another added. "She's one of us." The young warrior she'd saved stepped forward. "I call for early trial. Alara Vale has proven herself. Let the council acknowledge it." Others echoed the call. Not everyone. Some still looked uncertain, but enough voices that it couldn't be ignored. Darius met Alara's eyes. "Can you stand?" "Barely." "Then lean on me." He helped her up, kept his arm around her waist. "We're going back. Together." The walk back to Shadow Peak took hours. Alara drifted in and out of consciousness, the power expenditure leaving her drained, but she felt the pack around her, no longer hostile, no longer afraid, accepting. When they reached the castle, Kale waited in the courtyard. His expression was unreadable. "I heard what happened," he said. "Then you know she defended the pack," Darius said. "I know she broke the restrictions, used forbidden power, potentially exposed us to greater danger." But Kale's voice lacked its usual venom. He looked at Alara. "I also know she could have stayed safe and didn't. Could have let rogues kill warriors she had no obligation to protect." "What's your point?" Alara asked tiredly. "My point is you surprised me." He stepped closer. "I've spent months waiting for you to prove me right, waiting for the madness, the violence, the chaos." He paused. "Instead, you've been restrained, controlled, useful. Is that an apology?" "No, but it's acknowledgement." Kale looked at his brother. "I'll support the early trial, and I'll vote in her favor." Darius's shock was visible. "Why?" "Because I was wrong." The admission clearly pained Kale. Not about the danger. She's still dangerous. But about her character. She's proven she can wield power without being consumed by it. He met Alara's eyes. That's more than any Ashworth before her managed. It wasn't friendship, wasn't even trust. But it was a start. The trial was held the next day, a formality at that point. Too many warriors had seen Alara fight for the pack, had felt her power used to protect instead of destroy. The vote was nearly unanimous. Alara Vale was officially recognized as pack, not as a servant, not as a threat, as an equal. When Darius placed the pack marker around her neck, a silver wolf pendant that marked her as accepted, Alara finally let herself believe it. She'd won, not through force, not through politics, through choice, through proving that power was only as good or evil as the person wielding it. That night, as celebration rang through the castle, Darius found Alara on the balcony overlooking the kingdom. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Surreal." She touched the pendant. "I spent my whole life wanting to be seen. Now I am, and it's terrifying." "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" She looked at him. "What happens now? I'm pack, but I'm still in Ashworth. Still a political problem." "Then we'll solve it together." He pulled her close. "We have our whole lives to figure it out." "Together," Alara repeated softly. And for the first time in her life, she believed in forever. But forever had to wait. 3 days after the trial, scouts returned with news that shattered the fragile peace. The rogue attack hadn't been random. It had been a test. And now, a full army was gathering at the western border. 200 wolves, led by someone who knew Shadow Peak's defenses intimately. Someone from inside the pack. The emergency council convened within the hour. Alara stood beside Darius at the war table, no longer an observer, but a participant. The shift in her status was still strange. Nobles who'd wanted her dead now looked to her for input. Who would betray us? Lord Brennan demanded. Who has the knowledge and connections to organize this? Someone with access to our patrol routes, a warrior captain said. Our weak points, our troop numbers. Alara's skin prickled. She looked across the table at Kale, who stood with his arms crossed, his expression thoughtful. Too thoughtful. Like he was watching a play he'd written himself. Kale, she said quietly. Every eye turned to her. What about me? Kale asked, his tone pleasant. You knew about the northern border weakness. You're the one who suggested we pull troops from the west to reinforce it. Alara's mind raced, pieces clicking together. That's where this army is gathering, the west, where we're now undefended. You're accusing me of treason? Kale's voice stayed calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Based on what? Military strategy? Based on the fact that you've undermined Darius since I arrived. Based on the fact that every move you've made has divided the pack further. Alara stepped forward. Based on the fact that you're the only one who benefits from chaos. That's absurd. Is it? Darius's voice cut like steel. Because she's right. Every crisis we've faced, you've been positioned perfectly to exploit it. He moved toward his brother. The courtyard prank, Vivian's attack, even the restrictions on Alara, you suggested them all. To protect the pack, to weaken my authority. Darius's eyes blazed amber. How long have you been planning this? Since father died? Since before? Kale's pleasant mask finally cracked. You want the truth, brother? Fine. I've been planning this since you took the throne that should have been mine. Gasps echoed through the chamber. You were never the better choice, Kale continued, his voice rising. Too rigid, too focused on tradition. Father knew it. That's why he hesitated. But you were older, so you got the crown by default. He laughed bitterly. And what did you do with it? Clung to broken systems, defended a powerless girl, made yourself weak. Loving someone doesn't make me weak, Darius said quietly. It makes you compromised. Kale's eyes burned. The pack needs strength, not sentiment. They need a leader who puts them first, not some servant girl with dangerous blood. So you allied with rogues? Lord Brennan looked shocked. Endangered your own people? I allied with wolves who understand power, who aren't afraid to use it. Kale's hand moved to his sword. And when they take this castle, when Darius falls, I'll be here to pick up the pieces, to lead the pack into a stronger future. You're insane, Mara breathed. I'm practical. Kale drew his blade. And I'm done waiting. He lunged at Darius, steel met steel with a clash that echoed off stone. The council scattered, giving the brothers room. Alara started forward, but a guard grabbed her arm. Don't interfere, he hissed. This is between them. But it wasn't just between them. This was about succession, about power, about which vision for the pack would survive. Darius fought with controlled precision, every strike calculated, every defense measured. But Kale fought with desperation and rage, his attacks wild but relentless. You could have had everything, Kale snarled between strikes. Could have been the greatest king Shadowpeak ever saw, but you threw it away for her. I chose compassion over cruelty, Darius shot back. If that makes me weak in your eyes, so be it. Their blades locked. Kale leaned in close. She'll be the death of you. Or my salvation. Darius shoved him back, creating distance. But Kale was already shifting, bones cracking, fur sprouting. His golden wolf was slightly smaller than Darius's, but faster, more agile. Darius shifted to match him. The fight became brutal, teeth and claws instead of steel. The brothers circled each other, both bleeding, both refusing to yield. Through the mate bond, Alara felt Darius's pain, felt his determination, felt the moment he realized Kale was actually trying to kill him. Stop this, she shouted, both of you! Neither listened. Kale's wolf lunged, jaws aimed for Darius's throat. Darius dodged, but not fast enough. Fangs tore into his shoulder. He went down hard. Alara didn't think, just moved. She shifted mid-run, her silver wolf crashing into Kale's golden one with enough force to throw him off Darius. They rolled across the floor in a tangle of fur and fury. Kale's voice filled her mind through the pack bond. This doesn't concern you. You're trying to kill him. That makes it my concern. Foolish girl, you can't beat me in a fight. Then I won't fight fair. Alara called on the blue fire. It exploded from her in a wave, not burning but binding, wrapping around Kale's wolf like chains of pure energy. He struggled, snarling, but couldn't break free. Darius shifted back to human, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Alara, don't what? Let him kill you? She maintained the bonds, pouring power into them. He's a traitor. He admitted it. He's still my brother. The words hung heavy. Alara looked at Darius, bleeding, exhausted, but still unwilling to deliver a killing blow to family. It would have been easier if he were more ruthless, but it was that very compassion that made her love him. What do you want to do? She asked quietly. Darius looked at Kale, something like grief crossing his face. The dungeon. Until we deal with his army. Then, exile. You're merciful even now, Kale spat. It'll be your downfall. Maybe. But I'd rather follow with honor than rule through murder. Guards moved in, taking custody of the bound wolf. As they dragged Kale away, he shifted back to human, his eyes fixed on Alara. This isn't over, he said. The army still comes, and without me to call them off, they'll raze this castle to the ground. Let them try, Alara said. When Kale was gone, the council erupted into chaos, everyone talking at once, demanding action, panicking about the coming attack. Enough! Darius's voice cut through the noise. We have maybe 2 days before that army arrives. We need to prepare. Prepare how? Lady Thorne asked. We're outnumbered 4-1. Our western defenses are stripped. We can't win this conventionally. Then we won't fight conventionally. Darius looked at Alara. We have something they don't, something they're not prepared for. Understanding dawned. You want to use me as a weapon? I want to use you as a deterrent. Show them the kind of power they're facing. Make them reconsider. And if they don't reconsider, then we fight with everything we have. His eyes burned into hers. Can you do it? Can you face an army? Alara thought about the northern border, about the blue fire that had scattered rogues, about power she was still learning to control. I don't know, she admitted, but I'll try. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Warriors drilled relentlessly. Defenses were hastily reinforced, civilians were evacuated to the inner castle, and Alara trained until her body screamed for rest. Darius pushed her hard, forcing her to call on larger amounts of power, to maintain it longer, to direct it with precision instead of just unleashing destruction. You're going to be our first line of defense, he explained during a break. If you can break their initial charge, scatter them, our warriors can pick them off. What if I can't? Then we fall back to the castle and prepare for siege. He touched her face gently. But I believe in you, Alara. You're stronger than you know. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He kissed her forehead. Just remember, you're not alone. The entire pack fights with you. The words should have been comforting, but Alara couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to fail spectacularly. The army arrived at dawn on the 3rd day. Alara stood on the western wall watching 200 wolves emerge from the forest like a living shadow. They moved with military precision, organized, disciplined, deadly. At their head rode a massive gray wolf she didn't recognize. Mercenary pack from the southern territories, Lord Brennan said grimly. Kale must have paid them a fortune. Can we negotiate? Alara asked. With mercenaries? They'll want payment. We can't match what Kale promised them. What did he promise? The castle, the territory, everything. So negotiation was pointless. This would be a fight. Darius appeared beside her, fully armored, his face set. They're waiting for us to make the first move. Do we? No. We make them come to us, force them to attack uphill, across open ground. He looked at her. That's where you come in. Alara's hands were already glowing faintly. The power responded to her fear, her adrenaline, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. When they charge, Darius continued, I need you to hit them with everything you have. Break their formation. After that, our warriors engage. And if my power isn't enough, then we adapt. He squeezed her shoulder. Trust yourself. Below, the enemy army began to advance. Slow at first, Then faster. Within seconds, they were charging. 200 wolves racing toward Shadow Peak's walls with bloodlust in their eyes. Now! Darius shouted. Alara jumped from the wall. She shifted midair, her silver wolf landing hard on the ground between the castle and the charging army. For a heartbeat, she stood alone. One wolf against 200. Then she unleashed hell. Blue fire erupted from her in a massive dome, expanding outward in a shockwave of pure energy. It slammed into the charging wolves like a physical wall, throwing them backward, scattering their perfect formation into chaos. But they recovered fast. The mercenary leader howled orders, and they regrouped, splitting into 3 groups to flank her. Alara couldn't maintain the dome forever. Already she felt the strain, power pouring out of her faster than she could sustain. Fall back. Darius's voice filled her mind through the bond. You've done enough. But she hadn't. The army was still coming, still dangerous. If she pulled back now, they'd overwhelm the walls within minutes. She needed more power. The mate bond pulsed with Darius's energy. But that wasn't enough either. Then Alara felt something else. Threads of connection spreading through the pack. Every wolf in Shadow Peak, linked through ancient bonds. Individual threads weak, but together. She'd never tried to draw on the full pack before. Wasn't sure she could. Alara, what are you doing? Darius sounded alarmed. Something stupid, trust me. She opened herself to every pack bond she could feel. Drew on their collective strength, not draining them, just borrowing. A little from each wolf, channeled through the mate bond with Darius, amplified by her Ashworth bloodline. The blue fire tripled in intensity. This time, when it exploded outward, it didn't just scatter the enemy, it paralyzed them. Wolves froze mid-charge, trapped in bands of crackling energy that held them immobile. 200 mercenaries stopped cold. Alara shifted back to human, standing in the center of blue flames that didn't burn. Her eyes blazed white-hot. Her voice carried across the battlefield with unnatural volume. This is your only warning. Leave now, or I'll show you what real Ashworth power looks like. The mercenary leader shifted to human, a scarred man with cruel eyes. You're bluffing. You can't hold us all. Can I? Alara tightened the energy bonds. Wolves yelped in pain. I'm connected to every pack member in Shadow Peak. Their strength is mine. Mine is theirs. You're not facing one wolf, you're facing 300. It was an exaggeration, but he didn't know that. Kale promised us a castle, the mercenary said. We don't leave empty-handed. Kale is in the dungeon. His promises are worthless. Alara took a step forward. But I'll make you a different offer. Leave now, peacefully, and I'll pay you half what he promised. Stay, and I'll bury you where you stand. The mercenary's eyes narrowed. You have that kind of coin? The Ashworth bloodline controlled 3 kingdoms before they fell. Their treasure vaults were never found. She smiled, cold and dangerous. Until I shifted, until the bloodlock opened. Another lie. But said with enough confidence it sounded true. The mercenary looked at his trapped wolves, at the impossible blue fire, at Alara standing calm and blazing at the center of it all. Half the payment, he said finally. Delivered within the week. Agreed. And you release my wolves now, the moment you start marching away. They stared at each other, predators evaluating threat. Then the mercenary nodded. You heard her, he shouted to his pack. We're leaving. Alara released the bonds gradually, letting wolves free in small groups. They limped away, bloodied and defeated without a single casualty on either side. Within an hour, the entire army had vanished back into the forest. Alara collapsed. She woke in Darius's arms, being carried back to the castle. Warriors lined the walls, cheering. Servants threw flowers. The entire pack celebrated like they'd won the greatest battle in history. You were incredible, Darius murmured. Absolutely incredible. I lied about the treasure vault. I know. We can't actually pay them. We'll figure it out. He kissed her temple. You saved us, Alara. You saved everyone. The realization hit slowly. She'd done it. Actually done it. Faced an army and won through strategy instead of slaughter. Proven that power could be wielded with precision instead of just destruction. What happens now, she asked. Now we celebrate. Tomorrow, we deal with Kale and the political aftermath. Darius's arms tightened around her. But right now you rest. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion dragged her under before she could form words. She woke 2 days later. Her body felt like one giant bruise. Every muscle ached, but she was alive, and according to Mara, who'd apparently been sitting vigil the entire time, she was a legend. "They're calling you the Silver Wolf," Mara said, grinning. "The warrior who defeated an army without killing anyone. There are songs already. Terrible songs, but still. I didn't defeat them. I negotiated. Same thing to warriors. You won. That's what matters." Mara's expression sobered. "Darius has been asking for you. There's going to be a formal ceremony tonight." "Ceremony for what?" "You'll see." Alara let herself be dressed in formal robes, deep blue embroidered with silver wolves. Her hair was braided with moonflowers. She looked like someone important, which felt surreal. The Great Hall was packed. Every pack member who could fit had crammed inside, with more watching from corridors and balconies. At the center, Darius waited on his throne wearing the full royal regalia. Kale knelt before him in chains. Alara's entrance caused immediate silence. The crowd parted, creating a path straight to the throne. She walked it slowly, hyper-aware of every eye tracking her movement. "Alara Vale," Darius's voice rang out formally. "Approach." She climbed the dais and knelt beside Kale. He looked at her with something between hatred and grudging respect. "My brother stands accused of treason," Darius announced, "of allying with enemies, of attempting murder, of betraying pack and crown." He looked down at Kale. "Do you deny these charges?" "No," Kale said quietly. "I don't." "Then by pack law, you are exiled, effective immediately. You have until dawn to leave our territory. If you return, the sentence is death." Kale nodded, expecting this. But then Darius continued. "However, this council recognizes that exile is not just punishment, but opportunity. You will be given provisions for 1 month. After that, you survive on your own merit." He paused. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, brother. I hope you find peace." Unexpected mercy. Kale looked up, shocked. "Why?" "Because you're still family. And because Alara taught me that strength isn't about crushing your enemies, it's about choosing compassion even when cruelty would be easier." Kale's eyes shifted to Alara. "You could have killed me. Multiple times." "I could have," she agreed. "But what would that prove? That I'm as brutal as you feared? No thanks." "You're stranger than I thought." He almost smiled. "Maybe you'll survive being queen after all." "I'm not," Alara started. But Darius stood, cutting her off. "Alara Vale, rise." She did, confused. "You have proven yourself in ways I never imagined. Defended this pack, saved lives. Showed us that power and compassion can coexist." He descended the dais, pulling something from his pocket. "And you've shown me what true partnership looks like." He knelt before her. The entire hall gasped. "This isn't how this usually works," Darius said, a small smile playing at his lips. "Traditionally, the king chooses his queen behind closed doors. Political alliances, strategic marriages." He held up a ring, simple silver with a blue stone. "But you're not traditional, and neither is what we have." Alara's heart stopped. "Darius, I'm not asking you to be my queen because it's politically convenient. I'm asking because I love you, because you make me better, because I can't imagine ruling this kingdom without you beside me." His eyes burned into hers. "Alara Vale, will you marry me?" The silence was deafening. Alara looked at him, this king who'd risked everything for her, who'd defended her when the entire pack wanted her gone, who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "You're sure?" she whispered. "Because I come with complications, political problems, a bloodline that scares people. I'm sure." He stood, still holding the ring. "I've been sure since the moment I kissed you in that courtyard. Since before that, maybe. I just needed you to see yourself the way I see you. And how do you see me? As my equal, my partner, my salvation." He slid the ring onto her finger. "As the woman I want to spend my life with, if she'll have me." Alara looked at the ring, at Darius, at the assembled pack watching with bated breath. She thought about the girl she'd been, invisible, broken, convinced she was worthless. That girl would have said no, would have run from this kind of visibility. But she wasn't that girl anymore. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The hall erupted. Darius pulled her into a kiss that was probably wildly inappropriate for a formal ceremony, but neither of them cared. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, the pack was chanting her name. Not servant, not outcast. Elara, Elara, Elara. The wedding happened 3 weeks later, a massive celebration that brought together wolves from every territory. Even packs that had been skeptical sent representatives, curious about the silver wolf who'd defeated an army and captured a king's heart. Elara wore silver, of course. Her hair was loose, woven with moonflowers. She looked like something from the old legends, an Ashworth queen returned from myth. Darius wore black, his eyes never leaving her as she walked down the aisle. When they joined hands, blue fire sparked where their skin touched, visible proof of the mate bond, of power shared instead of hoarded. The ceremony was traditional in structure but revolutionary in meaning. For the first time in Shadow Peak's history, a king was marrying not for alliance but for love, not for power but for partnership. When they were pronounced bonded, mates recognized by pack and crown, the celebration began in earnest. Music, dancing, enough food to feed 3 kingdoms. Elara found herself pulled into dance after dance. Warriors who'd once mocked her now treated her with respect. Nobles who'd wanted her dead now sought her favor. It was overwhelming and wonderful and slightly terrifying. "You look happy," Mara said during a break. "Terrified, but happy." "I'm both." Elara squeezed her friend's hand. "Thank you for everything. For believing in me when no one else did. Don't get sappy on me. I just recognized quality when I saw it." But Mara's eyes were wet. "You deserve this, Elara. All of it." Lady Thorne approached slowly, leaning on a cane. The old woman looked frail but determined. "Your Majesty," she said formally. The title still felt strange. "Lady Thorne, I owe you an apology, a real one, not the half-hearted acknowledgement from before." The old woman's hands shook. "What I did to you, suppressing your wolf, stealing your childhood, it was wrong. I can justify it as protecting the pack, but the truth is I was afraid. Afraid of what you represented. Afraid of change." "I know," Elara said quietly. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know, watching you these past months, seeing what you've become." Lady Thorne's voice cracked. "You've proven every fear I had was based on ignorance. You're not the monster I imagined. You're the leader we needed. I'm just trying to be myself. That's what makes you extraordinary." Lady Thorne bowed. Actually bowed. "I'm honored to serve in your court, Queen Elara." She left before Elara could respond. The celebration continued late into the night, but eventually Elara and Darius slipped away from the crowds, seeking quiet in the castle's highest tower. They stood on the balcony, looking out over Shadow Peak. The kingdom spread below them, forests and villages and packed territories united under one crown. "Ready for this?" Darius asked, his arm around her waist. "For what? Being queen, leading a kingdom, dealing with politics and power struggles and constant scrutiny. All of that?" Elara laughed. "No, not even a little bit ready." "Good. If you were ready, I'd be worried." He kissed her temple. "But we'll figure it out. Together." "Together," she repeated. A familiar warmth bloomed in her chest, not the blue fire, but something gentler. The mate bond, strong and certain, the knowledge that she wasn't alone anymore. Movement in the courtyard below caught her attention. Warriors practicing night drills, servants preparing for the next day, children playing despite the late hour. Her people now, her responsibility. "I want to change things," she said suddenly. "The way the pack treats those who can't shift, the way we judge power, the way we—" "I know." Darius turned her to face him. "And we will. One step at a time, one law at a time, one heart at a time. It'll take years. Then it's lucky we have years." His smile was soft. "Besides, if anyone can revolutionize a kingdom, it's the woman who went from invisible servant to legendary queen in 6 months. I'm not legendary. You defeated an army without casualties. You brought a traitor to justice without execution. You married a king who couldn't shift until he met you." He stopped, realizing what he'd said. Alara blinked. "Wait, you couldn't shift?" Darius had the grace to look sheepish. "I could shift. Just not fully. My wolf was weak, unstable. I hit it well, but—" He touched her face. "Until you. Until our bond formed. Then everything clicked into place. So we fixed each other. We completed each other." He kissed her, slow and thorough. "And we're going to build something beautiful here, Ilara. Something that honors both tradition and progress. Both strength and compassion." She believed him. Against all odds, after everything they'd survived, she actually believed in a future where she wasn't just tolerated but valued. Where power was wielded with wisdom. Where love was stronger than fear. 2 months later, the kingdom gathered again, this time for the official coronation. Alara knelt before the eldest pack elder, her head bowed as ancient words were spoken in the old tongue. When she rose, a crown rested on her head. Not gold or jewels, but woven silver and moonflowers, a crown that represented both her bloodline and her choice. The pack howled their approval. The sound echoed across the valley, a proclamation that Shadow Peak had entered a new era. Queen Alara looked out over the assembly and saw what she'd never seen before: acceptance, belonging, home. She thought about the girl she'd been, the one who'd believed she was broken, worthless, invisible. If that girl could see this moment, would she believe it was real? Maybe not. But that girl had survived long enough to become this woman, had endured long enough to earn this crown, and that was the real victory. Not the power, not the title. The fact that she'd chosen to keep living when death would have been easier, had chosen to hope when despair was safer, had chosen herself when everyone else had chosen to ignore her. Darius took her hand as they descended from the dais together. His grip was warm, certain, real. "Any regrets?" he murmured. Alara looked at the cheering crowd, at Mara grinning in the front row, at warriors who'd once mocked her now bowing with genuine respect, at a kingdom that had tried to break her now celebrating her strength. "Not even one," she said. And she meant it. They walked through the great hall together, king and queen, alpha and alpha, partners in every sense that mattered. The crowd parted around them, but instead of the hostile whispers from months ago, she heard celebration. "Long live Queen Alara, the Silver Wolf! May she reign forever!" Outside, the full moon rose over Shadow Peak. The pack began to shift, preparing for the traditional coronation run. Alara and Darius shifted together, their wolves, black and silver, standing side by side. "Ready?" Darius's voice filled her mind through the bond. "For anything," she responded. They ran. The pack followed, hundreds of wolves racing through the forest, their howls blending into one magnificent song. Alara felt the connections binding them all together, threads of loyalty and trust and shared purpose. She was no longer the girl no one chose. She was the queen who chose herself. And in that choice, she'd found everything: love, purpose, power, wielded with wisdom, and the unshakable knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. The Silver Wolf of Shadow Peak ran beneath the moon, her mate beside her, her pack behind her, and her future spread out like starlight, infinite, beautiful, and entirely her own. She'd survived the harshest winter of her soul. Now, finally, came spring.